3 consecutive shots. All 3 struck Victor Vance in the chest. Blood blossomed across his shirt, a grotesque, spreading rose. The force of the impacts threw him, stumbling backward. His eyes, wide with disbelief, were fixed on Ethan, the son who had just shot him. He raised a hand, his mouth opening as if to speak, but the chance never came. He collapsed, a dead weight on the polished floor, the pool of blood beneath him slowly expanding. Ethan's chest heaved. He sucked in ragged breaths, his right hand, still gripping the pistol, trembling so hard the knuckles were white. Ruby froze, her legs turning to jelly as she clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. Lily stared at the body in the growing pool of blood, her gaze eventually shifting to Ethan. Her lips parted, but she said nothing, merely lowering her head. Benny's jaw hung open. He couldn't believe his boss had been so decisive. But it was done. No amount of shock or second-guessing mattered now. Whatever Ethan decided, he would follow without question. Boss, what about? What about Arthur Thorne? Ethan fought to control the storm of emotions raging inside him. I've already made arrangements at the prison, he said, his voice a low growl. He won't live to see the morning. He closed his eyes, taking a deep, shuddering breath, then turned to the terrified Ruby. His eyes narrowed, weighing her fate. A chill shot down Ruby's spine, and she crumpled to the floor. Don't kill me, she begged, her voice cracking. You said you wouldn't kill me. Ruby, Ethan said, his tone flat and cold. I'm grateful for the information you gave me, but you know too much. I can't trust you. Terror seized her. I won't tell anyone, she babbled, shaking uncontrollably. I swear I won't say a word. Just let me go, and I'll leave Port Sterling right now. Goodbye. Ethan's face was a mask of resolution. He raised the gun and pulled the trigger. Click. The gun jammed. Ruby's eyes rolled back in her head. Her mouth gaped open, but no air came. After a long moment, she found her voice again, dissolving into sobs. Please, let me go. I have elderly parents to take care of. I'm begging you. Please. Ethan stared into her eyes, a long, tense silence stretching between them. Finally, he let out a heavy sigh. Damn it. I'll take it as a sign. He lowered the gun. Ruby, you'd better forget everything you saw these last few days. If you don't, you won't just be harming yourself. You'll be harming your family. Understand? I understand. I won't say anything, I promise. Ethan holstered the pistol. You kept Gunner Marshall's secrets for 20 years. I'll trust your silence. For now, get out of here. Thank you. Granted a reprieve, Ruby scrambled to her feet and practically crawled toward the door, terrified the young playboy would change his mind. In her haste, no one noticed the subtle, calculating glance the middle-aged woman cast toward Victor Vance's body as she fled. She ran from the villa, heart pounding, glancing over her shoulder every few steps. It was a long run to the main road, but she finally managed to flag down a cab. The moment the door closed, the woman's face transformed. The terror vanished, replaced by a triumphant, cunning smirk. The driver turned, a matching grin on his face. He started to speak, but she pressed a finger to her lips, then made a circling motion with her hand. The driver understood immediately. He drove aimlessly for over 20 minutes, finally pulling over when they reached the coast. Ruby stripped off her clothes until she was in her underwear, then took the overcoat the driver handed her and wrapped it around herself. She got out of the car and threw everything, her clothes, her shoes, her phone, even a necklace from around her neck, into the dark, churning water. Back in the car, she let out a long, satisfied breath. The driver grumbled, You think all this is necessary? Good thing I brought a coat. What would you have worn in this cold? Ruby scoffed. Better to be careful. Ethan Vance has some foreign hacker on his payroll. The guy's a ghost. She couldn't suppress a laugh. Finally, it's done. A bunch of idiots. Let's go. Get me back there fast. Half an hour later, the taxi pulled into a private estate, the Cypress Vineyards. Ruby jumped out, not even bothering with shoes, and ran barefoot into one of the main suites. Inside, Simone was lounging on a sofa, swirling a glass of red wine in one hand while holding a phone to her ear with the other. Seeing Ruby, she immediately stood, grabbed a pair of slippers, and knelt to put them on Ruby's feet herself. Ruby was visibly moved, her eyes misting over, but she stayed silent while Simone finished her call. All right, I've got something to take care of. I'll call you back. Simone hung up, tossing the phone onto the sofa before pulling Ruby into an emotional hug. Ruby, I don't know how to thank you. Ruby smiled and shook her head. You don't ever have to thank me. Simone led her to the sofa and poured her glass of wine. To you, and to you, Ruby replied. They clinked their glasses together. After a sip, Ruby said, That kid, Ethan, he said he already made arrangements at the prison. Arthur Thorne won't last the night. Good, Simone said, her smile fading. If you didn't do it, I would have found a way. She paused. Ruby, are you sure Victor is dead? Positive. 3 shots to the heart. I took a good look at the body. There's no way he could have survived. And you're sure you weren't followed? I'm sure, Ruby said firmly. I had the driver circle around for ages. I didn't see a tail. And just in case, I ditched everything, phone, clothes, shoes. Anything that could possibly have a tracker on it, I threw it away. Good? That's good. A flicker of pure hatred crossed Simone's face before softening again. She took Ruby's hand, her voice sincere. Ruby, since my family fell, you've suffered so much by my side. I was worried sick about you, sending you to get close to Ethan Vance. But you came back safe. Now, our revenge is complete. From now on, you'll live a life of comfort with me. Ruby's composure broke. A name she hadn't used in years escaped her lips, filled with devotion. Simone. I went in there ready to die. I never thought Ethan Vance would soften up and let me go. She shook her head in disbelief. It was the strangest thing. He tried to shoot me, but the gun jammed. I begged him again, told him I had old folks to care for. He hesitated, said it must be a sign, and just, let me go. Simone let out a breath of relief. Her eyes filled with concern and affection. It really was a sign. My father and brother were watching over you from heaven. Ruby nodded, a flicker of resentment in her eyes as she thought back. It's a shame about Ethan Vance, and that bitch Isabel Thorne. After the evil their fathers committed, their children don't deserve to live either. Simone sneered. Isabel Thorne is just a pretty face. Making her disappear would be easy. As for Ethan, he has some fight in him. But after what he did to Travis Yates, do you think Everett Yates would just let that slide? She giggled. Let them fight. The more brutal, the better. Honestly, I'm kind of hoping Ethan manages to kill that old dog Everett. The words had barely left her mouth when every smart blind in the room began to close on its own. The smart speaker on the table started playing music, and a robotic vacuum in the corner whirred to life, skittering across the floor like a headless beetle. A chill ran down Ruby's spine. Was the place haunted? Simone frowned, assuming it was a glitch in the smart home system. She picked up her phone to call for maintenance, but just as she did, the room fell silent. An unnatural, eerie quiet that was more unsettling than the noise. Looking around, a sense of deep unease washed over her. She glanced down at her phone to make the call and saw it. No signal. Outside in the courtyard, a security guard was idly smoking a cigarette when he heard a buzzing sound overhead. He looked up and saw a small red light blinking in the night sky. He squinted, trying to make it out. What the hell is that, a drone? The next second, the cold steel of the gun barrel pressed against the back of his neck. 1 hour earlier, Emerald Lake Estates. As Ruby stumbled out of the villa, Ethan stood at the window, watching her until she was a disappearing speck heading toward the main gate. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face. Benny stood uncertainly for a moment, then strode over to Victor's body, apparently to start cleanup. He knelt, placing his hands on Victor's shoulders, but didn't immediately drag him. Instead, he started muttering. Chairman, you were always pretty decent to me, except for docking my pay that 1 month and my Christmas bonus. Still, how could you do something like that? You kind of had it coming, didn't you? Can't blame the boss for this one. I'll pour one out for you. A whole case. Rest in peace, man. He was cut short when Victor, unable to hold it in any longer, opened his eyes and let out a snort of laughter. What the? Benny yelped, a primal roar of zombie on his lips as his fist, the size of a cinder block, flew instinctively toward Victor's face. Whoa! Victor gasped, twisting his head aside, just in time. Don't! I'm not dead, you idiot! Benny! Ethan shouted, a cold sweat breaking out as he saw the floor tile crack under Benny's missed punch. It was a fake. The whole thing was an act for Ruby. Benny stared, his expression a perfect question mark. You think my brain can handle this kind of reboot? Lily, however, was completely unfazed. She had been startled when Ethan first fired, but as an expert with firearms, she noticed the truth almost immediately. A closer look at the wounds on Victor's chest revealed the telltale signs of blank cartridges. And while the blood looked real, it had no metallic scent. She knew her young master was putting on a show. Victor sat up, glaring at Benny as he extended a hand. Well, you just gonna stand there gawking? Help me up. Oh, right. Benny scrambled to pull him to his feet, his face a veritable encyclopedia of unanswered questions. Victor clutched his chest, complaining to Ethan. You said blanks don't hurt. Christ, 3 of them. Was that really necessary? Ethan replied coolly, just for fun. It was pretty satisfying. Victor's mouth twitched. He pointed a finger at Benny. And you big oaf. You hold a grudge, don't you? Still mad about that 1 month's pay. And the bonus, Benny mumbled. It was almost 20 grand. Victor was speechless. Doesn't your boss give you enough money? That was money I earned. Fine, fine. Victor surrendered, turning to his son. Give him 20 grand later. I'll owe you. Jesus, he almost sent me to the morgue for real. He tapped the cracked tile with his foot. Look at that. A punch like that could kill a donkey. Benny stated, matter-of-factly, you're not a donkey, Chairman. Victor stared at him, genuinely wondering how Ethan hadn't strangled the man by now. All right, go get cleaned up, Ethan said to his father, trying to suppress a smirk. He turned to Lily. Lily, find him a change of clothes. Yes, mister. Ethan. Victor took a breath and started cursing. That damn Ron Wallace. What kind of cheap blood packs are these? Sticky, disgusting. He peeled off his jacket. That said, son, your aim is pretty good. Nice grouping. Hearing that, Benny finally noticed the deflated blood packs strapped to Victor's chest and the other strange contraptions. It clicked. When he picked Victor up from the airport, he'd seen Ron Wallace's car in the parking garage. The famous director had supplied them with movie props. Benny scratched his head. Boss, did you know Ruby was a plan from the start? She wasn't really Gunnar Marshall's mistress. Right, Ethan said with a small smile. As for who she really is, we'll find out shortly. Benny, I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd give the game away. Oh, Benny said, still confused. So why go through all this trouble? Why not just beat it out of her? Ethan, ever patient with his loyal but simple subordinate, explained. Think about it. Under normal circumstances, whether I got the information or not, I would never have let Gunnar Marshall's mistress live. I'd have killed her to silence her. Ruby, pretending to be his mistress, would know that. She came here expecting to die for her cause. With that kind of resolve, you could beat her to death and she wouldn't talk. I was originally just going to put on a small show and let her go. But then I thought, if the act isn't convincing, she'll suspect I'm onto her and she'll be on guard. It was better to play along, give her exactly what she wanted. The moment she thinks she succeeded, her first move will be to report to her master. The light bulb went on over Benny's head. So you use her to lead us to her boss and take them all out in one go. Clever. Benny beamed. I get it. And the audio recording was a fake too, right? Jax told me yesterday it was real, no tampering. Man, you guys really had me fooled. Ethan's smile faded slightly. The recording was real. Benny's brain felt like it was twisting into a pretzel. Just then, Jax, who had guessed Ethan's plan but had hidden upstairs to keep from laughing and blowing their cover, came down the stairs, laptop in hand. He sat next to Ethan with a grin. She's been picked up. Ethan stood. Get ready. We're moving out in 10. Back to the present. The moment Simone's phone lost its signal, a dreadful premonition took root in her heart. Before she could react, the door to the suite creaked open. The bodyguard from the courtyard pitched forward and collapsed onto the floor. His throat was a mangled, bloody ruin, as if it had been crushed. His eyes were wide with terror, blood gushing from his mouth. It was a ghastly sight. Simone and Ruby instinctively stumbled backward, their faces pale with shock. A second later, Benny, the human bulldozer, stormed in, another bodyguard clutched in his massive hand. With two sharp cracks, he snapped the man's neck and tossed the body aside. Lily followed close behind, pistol drawn. Ruby's eyes widened. She shot a panicked look at Simone, wanting to explain, but not knowing where to start. She pointed a trembling finger at the intruders. How did you find us? She had been so careful. How could they have possibly tracked her? Her mind reeled, unable to find an answer. When neither Benny nor Lily spoke, Ruby turned to Simone again. Miss Simone, I swear I don't know how they found us. I threw my phone away, I got rid of my clothes and shoes, how? Before she could finish, a familiar voice drifted from the doorway. I imagine, as careful as you were, you didn't think to change your underwear. Ethan Vance stepped into the room. The word underwear made Ruby's blood run cold. She remembered the metal clasp on her bra. It had to be. That night, the wine he gave her must have been drugged. The realization hit her, and she clenched her fists in shame and fury. Ethan had planned to mock her further, but the moment he saw Simone, his playful demeanor vanished. His brow furrowed in surprise. You? Simone's eyes were like ice. She glared at Ethan and sneered. You little bastard. I take it your father isn't dead. The moment she saw Ethan here, she knew. Ruby had been played. Is that Simone? Victor's voice came from the hall, casual and unhurried. He sounded like he recognized the woman's voice. He quickened his pace, and as he stepped through the door, his face mirrored his son's shock. It really is you. Simone, when did you get back to Port Sterling? Simone took a deep breath, tilted her head back, and laughed a cold, bitter laugh, her eyes filled with resentment. Miss Simone, Ruby cried, overwhelmed with guilt. I never imagined they could be so devious. It's not your fault, Ruby, Simone said with a wretched smile. The guilt only intensified Ruby's anger. She glared at Ethan, demanding, When? When did you know I was lying? Ethan shrugged. That night at Gunner's house. You were so focused on handling me that you missed the most basic detail. There wasn't a single woman's item in the entire house. Not a towel, not a pair of slippers. Nothing. It was all his. I figured he and his mistress had split up long ago. Or maybe he never even had one. Once I knew you were a fake, I knew the memory card you gave me was part of the act. The surprising part was that the information on it, the evidence against Victor Vance, was all true. At the time, I figured whoever was behind you had to be someone who knew him well. Someone from the Vance first or second branch. I never expected. He shot a dirty look at his father. Another one of your romantic debts. Victor's expression was uneasy. He waved a hand at Benny and Lily. You two can wait outside. Once they were gone, he sank onto the sofa and sighed. Son, this time you've got me wrong. He looked at Simone, a bitter smile on his face. This second wife of mine isn't here to collect on a romantic debt. She's here for a blood debt. Ethan looked at him, confused. Victor continued, You've been wondering about that recording from the Willow Creek Inn, haven't you? Ethan grunted in assent. After Jax had confirmed the recording's authenticity, he had been completely baffled. If he hadn't already suspected Ruby, he would have been convinced his father was the mastermind. The evidence was ironclad. Even so, he'd remained suspicious, grilling Victor on the phone. Victor had been evasive, only saying it was related to an old matter with the Thorne family and that he'd explain when he got back. He told Ethan to prepare himself. I admit, the recording is real, Victor said, his voice heavy with the past. But the woman I was talking about in there, it wasn't your mother. It was Simone. He began to recount the story. 10 years ago, on the night of May 4th, my then brother-in-law, Simone's brother, did something unforgivable. He kidnapped Arthur Thorne's wife and daughter. Ethan's gut tightened. The bastard was a lunatic, Victor went on, his voice laced with disgust. He used his family's power to do whatever he wanted. He got into some minor business dispute with Arthur and decided to retaliate like a madman. He assaulted Mrs. Thorne. She later took her own life, jumped into the ocean. The words were hard for Victor to say. He paused, then continued. Isabel witnessed the entire thing. The whole assault on her mother. It caused severe psychological trauma. Son, you must have noticed by now. Something isn't right with her. Ethan's fists clenched unconsciously. He turned his head, his gaze burning into Simone with a chilling intensity. After it happened, Victor said, Arthur came to me. He was my brother. How can I not help him? Coincidentally, I was already planning to cut ties with Simone's family anyway. So, I set a trap and had her brother killed. Then her father came looking for revenge. I was cornered. Arthur and I, we did what we had to do. We took care of the whole family, sent them all away. As for Simone, we'd been married for over a decade, but I'd always neglected her. I felt guilty. I couldn't bring myself to harm her, so I let her go. But she wouldn't stop. She kept reporting me and Arthur to the authorities. So finally, on the night of June 14th, I had Jean Marshall go and persuade her. I gave her a large sum of money and told her to leave Port Sterling for good. He looked at Simone, sighing again. Simone, I truly never thought you'd come back. Just like Ethan, I assumed this whole plot was orchestrated by the other Vance branches. It never occurred to me it could be you. You were never this. Calculating. Shut up. Simone screamed, her whole body trembling, her eyes red. Victor Vance, you inhuman monster. Victor sighed wearily. Simone, Arthur being sent to prison. That was your doing too, wasn't it? So what if it was? She spat through gritted teeth. And let me tell you something else. The federal investigation you were under a while back, that was me too. Why don't you just kill me now, Victor? Go on. Miss Simone. Ruby rushed forward and hugged her, sobbing. Ethan's mind raced. I get it now. Mr. King. He was working for you. Yeah. Simone glared at Ethan, her voice dripping with venom. Ethan Vance, I always thought you were just a useless, spoiled brat. But when King failed to bring you down, and then his people got tailed, I realized you were much more than you appeared. So you decided to use my hand to get rid of my father? Ethan said, That's vicious. Simone snorted. I knew you and your father had a distant relationship. I just never thought you'd actually find a way to trust each other. It's not trust, Ethan corrected her. It's mutual interest. To be honest, if he couldn't have explained that recording, I wouldn't have hesitated. Victor shot his son a sidelong glance, his mouth twitching. He then looked back at Simone, his curiosity piqued. Simone, when did you get back to Port Sterling? And how did you get mixed up with the Yates family? Simone took a shaky breath. I came back 4 years ago. I heard that Everett Yates had always been at odds with you, so I seduced him. He promised he'd help me get my revenge. But, she laughed humorlessly, I slowly discovered that Everett Yates wasn't the powerful man I imagined. He was a coward, always being crushed under your thumb. To provoke a fight between you, I manipulated his son, Travis. I told him you had stolen his woman. The idiot misunderstood me and thought I meant Harrison Vance. That night, he took a gun and forced Harrison to kneel in public. Ethan's expression was thoughtful. So, when Travis Yates came after me the other day, that was your doing too? Which means Everett Yates still doesn't have the guts to challenge my father openly. He probably doesn't even know what you've been up to. You're good, I'll give you that. The captain of his security team was willing to die for you. I imagine you didn't have to do much. Persuading. Simone gave a bleak, knowing smile. The answer was obvious. Ethan chambered around. The truth was out, and he was done talking. There was no reason for Simone to live. But as he raised the pistol, Victor stopped him. Son, you can go outside. I have a few things I need to say to Simone. Ethan froze. His promiscuous, cold-hearted father had never shown mercy to any woman. From what he'd just said, he had already been more than generous with Simone in the past. What was he planning now? Still, Ethan didn't ask. He holstered his weapon and left the room. A moment later, Ruby was escorted out as well. Ethan glanced at her, but said nothing. Prying information from someone like her was a waste of time. Besides, he was certain Gunnar Marshall's death was a suicide. The circumstances were easy enough to guess. About 20 minutes later, the door opened. Victor and Simone emerged together. The people waiting outside glanced over casually, but when they saw Victor's arm wrapped possessively around the seductive woman's waist, their eyes went wide. Benny's thoughts raced. That woman just tried to have him killed, and now he's going to sleep with her? Damn. Revenge by seduction? How many kidneys does the chairman have? Lily was just as stunned. He can turn even this situation into a hookup. Is he trying to set a new world record for picking up women? Ruby's mind was in turmoil. Miss Simone was always madly in love with him. Has he charmed her all over again? No, it must be a trick. She's using her feminine wiles. Ethan just asked outright, Victor, are you going to explain what the hell you're doing? Victor pulled Simone even closer, whispering something in her ear. A blush crept up her cheeks, and she gave his chest a playful tap, looking down shyly. They looked for all the world like a couple in the middle of a lover's quarrel. Simone, go and pack your things. My driver will be here soon to pick you up. Whatever happened in the past, right or wrong, let's leave it there. From now on, let me make it up to you. In a couple of days, I'll take you to see Everett Yates. You'll divorce him, and we'll remarry. Simone's eyes were soft and yielding. She nodded gently and, taking Ruby with her, went to another room. Once they were gone, Victor turned to Ethan. In the car, he said in a low voice. Inside the vehicle, with the doors closed, Ethan couldn't contain his shock. A blood feud, and you managed to seduce her? How is that even possible? It's insane. Victor was shameless. It's not something I can teach you, son. It's innate charm. Ethan was speechless. Victor smiled. Don't touch her yet. She's still useful. Ethan considered this. You're going to use her against the Yates family? Victor confirmed. After what you did to Travis, Everett Yates will be coming for me sooner or later. It's better to strike first. Ethan thought for a moment. Everett Yates is an old fox, and he's powerful. It won't be easy. Is there anything I can do to help? After all, I'm the one who started this. Victor waved a dismissive hand, a confident look on his face. No need. I've already figured out how to deal with him. Son, have you ever heard the expression, use 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds? Ethan was puzzled, but Victor offered no explanation. He lit a cigarette. Even though we know Simone was behind this plot, Gunnar Marshall is still tied to your mother's death. That bastard. He used to do a lot of work for me, followed me around like a loyal dog, respected and feared me. I can't imagine who could have ordered him to do it. Who would have given him the courage to touch my woman? Gunnar Marshall's death was a suicide, no doubt about it, Ethan said suddenly. I'm guessing his suicide caught Ruby off guard, even panicked her. That's why she was sloppy with the details, and I saw through her act. By the way, Gunnar has a daughter. Victor frowned. A daughter? I never heard about that. Based on what Donnie Sullivan told us, when Ruby's people found Gunnar, they must have pressed him for the truth about what happened 10 years ago. But he chose to kill himself rather than talk. The person he was protecting, it was almost certainly his daughter. So, there are 2 possibilities. 1, his daughter has evidence against some very powerful people. Or 2, those powerful people have his daughter. Victor mused. I'm inclined to believe the first theory. Either way, Ethan said, we need to find his daughter as soon as possible. You should put your people on it. He paused, a wicked grin spreading across his face. Victor, there's another way to handle this. It would put you in a little danger, though. Want to hear it? Seeing the devious look on his son's face, Victor felt a chill. What are you plotting now? That night, Ethan began. I took Gunnar Marshall's body and cleaned up the scene. As far as the police are concerned, he's officially listed as missing, not dead. That means, apart from us, no one knows he's dead, including the person who gave him his orders back then. My original plan was to find out who was behind Ruby, then leak the news that I have Gunnar Marshall in my custody. The person who ordered the hit back then would have to come and try to silence him. And me, I'd be on their hit list too. It wouldn't be hard to draw them out. Victor mulled this over, quickly catching on. You little bastard. You're afraid of dragging Isabel into this, so you're pushing it all onto me. You want to say that I have Gunnar Marshall, so the real mastermind comes after me instead. As the old saying goes, a father knows his son. In truth, Ethan had initially planned to face the danger himself. That was why he had taken Isabel to dinner, intending to draw a line between them and protect her. But every time he tried to say the words, they caught in his throat, especially after she apologized for misjudging him. So, out of a sort of necessity, he decided to use his father as a shield. First, to the outside world, he was still a good-for-nothing playboy. This move wouldn't betray his true nature. Second, saying Gunnar was in Victor's hands would make the mastermind even more desperate. And third, Victor's security detail was top-notch. He wouldn't be in any real danger. Seeing his son's tacit agreement, Victor grimaced. Fine, we'll do it that way. But give me some time. Let me deal with Everett Yates first. Be quick about it. 3 days, max. They talked a little more. After a few moments, Victor casually asked, Your aim is pretty good. When did you learn to shoot like that? Ethan sighed inwardly. If it hadn't been for the urgent circumstances, he never would have let Victor see him with a gun, precisely to avoid this kind of curiosity. He knew the old man would start digging into his life again. He gave a vague answer. You pick things up on the streets. Victor chuckled. Right. Don't ask, don't tell. A moment later, Victor's Maybach pulled into the Vineyard estate. As Ethan was about to get out, he remembered something. You should go to the prison. When I saw my father-in-law the other day, I wanted to ask him about the recording, but I noticed the guard next to him had shifty eyes. To be safe, I didn't say anything explicit. My guess is Arthur hasn't slept well for days. You should go talk to him, explain things. While you're there, check out that guard. I'd bet good money he's one of Simone's people. All right, Victor nodded. I'll go to the prison tomorrow. At the same time, in Isabel Thorne's underground garage, the white Maserati glided silently into its parking space. Isabel got out of the back seat, her cheeks flushed, looking slightly tipsy. After paying the designated driver, she leaned back in to wake up Dr. Zoe Russell, who was 7/10 drunk and sleeping like the dead. Huh? We're home already. Zoe looked around blankly. She stumbled out of the car, blinked at Isabel, and let out a small burp. Where's that drama queen Leo? Hick. His family called with some emergency, Isabel said. He had to leave halfway through. Oh, Zoe said, then launched into a mock tragic wail. Izzy, thank you. Every time I'm down, you're there for me. I can never repay your kindness. Tonight, let me sleep with you. Let me use my stunning beauty to repay my debt. Come, ravage me. Huh? Isabel rolled her eyes. Dr. Russell, you get really weird when you drink. Zoe put on a mischievous expression and linked arms with Isabel, swaying toward the elevator. If I weren't a little weird, hick. How could I treat so many weirdos? You should take some time to treat yourself. You're a mess. No wonder you're still single. The comments seemed to hit a nerve. Zoe pouted. Is that my fault? The only men I meet are my patients. And yeah, some of them are hot, hick. But I swore an oath never to date a patient. He might try to use our relationship as an excuse to skip out on his therapy bills. Isabel was at a loss for words. Maybe you should listen to your family and go on a blind date. They stepped into the elevator. Zoe pressed the close button. Forget it. I'd rather focus on making money. Once I'm rich, I'll... She trailed off, her eyes fixing on Isabel's impressive chest with undisguised envy. I'll get a boob job. I consider myself a natural beauty, smart and talented, but these two lumps just refuse to cooperate. I'm as flat as an aircraft carrier. If the country went to war, I'd volunteer to lie in the ocean. Ugh, God must have known that if I were perfect, I'd become arrogant, so he made me. Mediocre. Isabel stifled a laugh. I'd advise against trying to defy the heavens. The two friends chatted and laughed their way to Isabel's apartment. Just as Isabel opened the door, Zoe cried out, oh. She rummaged through her purse and then looked up with a pained expression. Izzy, give me the car keys. I left my phone in your car. Isabel sighed. I'll get it for you. You've had too much to drink. No. Zoe waved her hands dismissively. Who are you looking down on? Only dogs get that drunk. Isabel was exasperated. Then I'll go with you. No need, I can go by myself. Zoe snatched the keys from Isabel's hand. Who knows, she said theatrically. Maybe I'll have a fateful encounter in the underground garage. Ha ha ha. Isabel gave her a look. Knowing her friend's impressive lack of alcohol tolerance, she ignored the nonsense, took back the keys, and insisted on going with her. But then she felt a sudden, urgent need for the bathroom herself. She pulled Zoe inside the apartment. Wait for me. I'll go down with you. Zoe felt it was a trivial matter not worth the fuss, and she didn't want to bother her friend. She nodded agreeably on the surface, but as soon as Isabel disappeared in the bathroom, she grabbed the keys and slipped out the door. Ding! The elevator arrived at the second basement level. As the doors slid open, a woozy Zoe was about to step out when she saw a tall, handsome man standing right in front of her. He had a strange cross necklace hanging on his chest, giving him a quiet, scholarly vibe. His clothes had a certain style, like a leading man from Korean drama. Zoe froze, rubbing her eyes to make sure he was real and not a drunken hallucination. She had just been joking with Isabel, and now fate had literally delivered a potential husband to her doorstep. Finn, his face impassive, was also slightly surprised. Ethan had told him to protect Isabel. For the past 2 days, he had been tailing her discreetly. Tonight was no exception. He'd seen the two friends go upstairs and had decided to wait a bit before following, so as not to be detected. Now, by sheer coincidence, he'd run right into Isabel's friend. It wasn't a major issue. He'd just play it cool. Finn gave a slight bow and stepped aside, gesturing for Zoe to exit the elevator first. Zoe, however, was naturally eccentric and bold, and the alcohol had completely stripped away her usual inhibitions with strangers. Her eyes practically glowed as she looked at Finn. She struck a pose, trying to contain her excitement. Oh my, you startled me. Finn couldn't comprehend why this woman, upon being startled, felt the need to twist her body and constantly flick her hair. Did she have some kind of neurological disorder? Zoe's mind was racing. This was a godsend opportunity she couldn't miss. It was the first time in her life she'd felt her heart flutter at first sight. She had to get his number, but her phone was still in Isabel's car. What to do? Suddenly, an idea sparked. She would send the elevator away, buying herself time to get her phone. Then, she could ride up with him and find an excuse to ask for his number. Yes, perfect. With that, the love-struck, inebriated psychologist calmly pressed the button for the top floor. She swayed out of the elevator, and just as Finn was about to step in, she deliberately twisted her ankle and stumbled, falling right toward him. However, the deadly assassin, whose appearance belied his skills, reacted with lightning speed. He instinctively sidestepped. Zoe, who never imagined a man's first reaction to a beautiful woman falling toward him would be to dodge rather than help, landed face first on the concrete floor. Finn calmly glanced down at her. My boss didn't say I had to protect you, he thought, and stepped right over her. Yes, he stepped over her. But just as he was about to enter the elevator, he felt 2 hands clamp onto his leg. Hey, why didn't you catch me? Are you even a man? Zoe whined. Then, probably tried to use his leg for support to stand up. She gripped his pant leg and yanked. Finn was wearing loose-fitting track pants. With that one sharp pull, they slid right down his legs. Time seemed to freeze. He looked down, she looked up, their gazes locking in a silent, mortifying tableau. Zoe's hands were frozen. For some reason, her brain misfired, and she tried to pull his pants back up. Finn took a deep breath. With a speed that defied the eye, he pulled up his own pants. He stared at Zoe for a moment, then, with great mercy, decided to ignore her. He looked up, only to see the elevator was already ascending. The other one was on the 28th floor. Resigned, he pressed the up button and waited. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Zoe chanted, not daring to look at him. She scrambled to her feet and stumbled toward Isabel's car, her inner monologue screaming. Zoe, fate chewed up your destiny and spoon-fed it to you, and you just spat it right back out. You absolute disaster. Normally, that would have been the end of it. But under the influence of alcohol, a new thought bubbled up. What if fate intended for her to pull down the handsome stranger's pants? This was a unique, once-in-a-lifetime connection. And besides, even if it wasn't destiny, she should at least apologize properly. Otherwise, he'd think she was some kind of pervert. With this renewed purpose, Zoe quickly grabbed her phone and rushed back. She hurried, and, just as she got there, the handsome man was stepping into the newly arrived elevator. I'm sorry. Zoe stood bolt upright just outside the elevator doors, bowed a full 90 degrees, her tone utterly sincere as she shouted, I didn't mean to pull your pants off just now. The apology echoed through the entire underground garage. Finn's breathing grew slightly heavier. He immediately jabbed the closed door button. Seeing the doors about to shut, Zoe straightened up, shot her hand out to block them, and slipped inside with an awkward smile. Finn stared at her face for a moment, then took 2 steps to the side, maintaining a safe distance. Zoe feigned composure. She glanced at the lit-up floor buttons and feigned surprise. "Oh, you're going to 19th floor too? What a coincidence, so am I." In her drunken state, she completely forgot that the only 2 apartments on the 19th floor belonged to Isabel and Ethan. This handsome man obviously knew Ethan. When he didn't respond, Zoe was undeterred. She adopted a cutesy, high-pitched voice. "Hey, handsome, why are you coming home so late? Busy with work? Do you have a girlfriend? Can I get your number? I was so out of line tonight. Maybe another day." Finn finally responded with 2 simple words. "No, you can't." Zoe was crushed, but to save face, she feigned arrogance. Fine, don't give it to me." So stoic. Who are you trying to impress? You don't really think being cold is cool, do you? Don't be so narcissistic. So, you're really not going to give it to me? You know, some chances, once you miss them, they're gone forever. Finn raised a hand and gently gripped the cross on his chest, muttering under his breath, "Aishiba." "Oh, you really are Korean?" Zoe said, surprised. She was about to say more when a wave of nausea washed over her. Upstairs, Isabel had been waiting for a long time. Worried, she decided to go down and check. Just as she opened her front door, the elevator arrived on her floor. The door slid open with a whoosh, and at the same time, she heard Zoe's voice. "If you don't give me your number today, I'm going to vomit to death. Blarg, save me." Isabel's heart clenched. She rushed over and saw a handsome man in the elevator holding Zoe's head at arm's length, as if to keep her from getting any closer. His face was expressionless, but his eyes were filled with impatience and disgust. And her best friend, while throwing up, was still trying to get his number. "I'm so sorry." Isabel apologized profusely to Finn as she tried to pull Zoe away. But when Zoe saw her, all her pent-up frustration came pouring out in a torrent of snot and tears. "Izzy, he rejected me. Why, the first time I ever pursue a guy, and he rejects me. Hey, you think I pulled your pants down on purpose, don't you? I didn't. I'm going to get a boob job. I'm going to get 2 basketballs. Then you'll be sorry." Isabel was speechless. If they weren't such close friends, she would have pretended she didn't know her. Still, what on earth had happened in just a few short minutes? Zoe's drunken antics were legendary, but she'd never pulled down someone's pants before. Was this a new milestone in her performance art? "I'm so sorry. She's drunk. I'm really, really sorry." Isabel apologized again as she dragged and pulled Zoe out of the elevator. Finn looked at his boss's wife, his expression softening slightly. He said nothing, simply walked out of the elevator and headed toward Ethan's apartment. Isabel watched him go, stunned, as he let himself into Ethan's home. A friend of Ethan's? After settling Zoe in, Isabel considered for a moment, then called Ethan. "Are you home?" Her friend had made a fool of herself. She felt she should apologize properly. "I'm at Emerald Lake Estates," Ethan replied. "Miss me?" Isabel ignored the question. "The person in your apartment. Is he a friend of yours?" "Yeah," Ethan said. "What's up?" Isabel took a breath. Zoe had too much to drink tonight and was a bit rude to him. "Could you explain it to him?" Ethan couldn't imagine how that crazy girl could have offended his cold-blooded brother-in-arms, but he didn't press. "It's fine. I'll give him a call in a bit. He has a good temper." "Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell me?" Ethan prodded. Isabel hesitated. Did Travis Yates give you any more trouble?" "No. Victor's back. He'll handle it." "Oh, well, you should still be careful. You can't be too cautious." She paused, then added, "Wherever you go, you should probably take that big guy with you." A wide smile spread across Ethan's face. "Okay, whatever you say." The next morning, Isabel woke up at her usual time. As she walked out her bedroom, she saw Zoe sitting on the living room sofa, staring into space with a look of utter despair. "Why are you up so early? You don't have work." Zoe's face was a mask of misery. "Izzy, I'm begging you. Do not, under any circumstances, remind me of my behavior last night. Please don't." The worst part of being drunk is when someone helps you remember it all the next day. Even worse, the high-strung psychologist hadn't blacked out at all. The memory of her wolf-like advances in the elevator, especially crying and demanding a man's number while simultaneously vomiting, was an exhibition of pure humiliation. The cringe was so intense her toes could probably carve out the Grand Canyon. Isabel couldn't help but smile. "Don't worry about it. That guy last night is a friend of Ethan's." I called and explained. Zoe's eyes shot open. "I remember, his friend seemed Korean." Is he some important guest? I pulled down his pants, and I think I threw up on him. Your dog of a man isn't going to have me killed, is he? Now you're scared? I told you not to get drunk last night, but you wouldn't listen. Isabel walked toward the bathroom. Relax. Ethan said it's fine. Zoe clasped her hands together piously. God, I swear right here, right now, if I ever drink again, may my breasts grow 10 times bigger. Isabel stabbed her right in the heart. 0 times 10 is still 0. Zoe was speechless. Half an hour later, Isabel finished her makeup and was ready to leave for work. Zoe, with no desire to go back to sleep, decided to leave with her. As fate would have it, just as they stepped out of their respective doors, Finn emerged from the apartment opposite them, holding a bag of trash. Their eyes met. The atmosphere was thick with awkwardness. Isabel felt that even though she'd had Ethan apologize on their behalf, since they'd run into him, she should apologize again in person. But before she could speak, the ever-unpredictable Zoe let out a dramatic sigh. Izzy, my twin sister drank way too much last night. Just let her keep sleeping at your place. Ugh, she makes me worry so much. I had to come check on her so early. Isabel thought. What are you talking about? Finn thought. Is she an idiot? Or does she think I'm an idiot? Just then, Ethan called. Izzy, ready to head out? Yes, I'm about to go downstairs. Then I won't come up. I'll wait for you in the garage. Isabel was a bit surprised Ethan had come. Okay. A few moments later, Isabel arrived in the underground garage. A black G-Wagon was parked by the elevator, with Ethan leaning against the back door, smoking. Where's your friend? Still sleeping it off? Ethan asked, a smirk playing on his lips. Isabel smiled faintly. She insisted on getting her own ride. Too embarrassed to see me? Ethan chuckled, reaching out to take her hand for a brief moment before opening the car door for her. Let's go. The car started moving. Ethan handed Isabel some kanji he'd just bought. It's Friday. I'll have Benny drive you to the studio tonight. You work so late, I don't want you driving tired. Okay. Isabel didn't refuse. She stuck a straw in the cup and took a sip. Actually, Director Stevens talked to me. They were originally going to invite you back for this week's episode, but they canceled. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Afraid I'd beat someone up again? Come on, I only hit invertebrates. They don't count as human. Isabel shook her head. No, your performance last time brought the show a lot of attention. They'd love to have you back. It's just, after you hit Travis Yates, even though I did some emergency PR, there's still a lot of negative press about you online. I get it, Ethan said with a roguish grin. Afraid one bad apple will spoil their whole bunch. There's a charity auction the day after tomorrow, Isabel said suddenly. You should come with me. We can bid on a few things. I'll help you with more PR and completely squash the negative news. Ethan's eyes twinkled. Izzy, I've noticed your attitude toward me has changed a lot. You're starting to care about me. Isabel turned to look out the window. No, I'm thinking about the company. You seem to be lying to yourself. Isabel just sipped her kanji, not responding. Benny, in the driver's seat, allowed a little chuckle. What are you laughing at? Ethan asked. Benny fell silent. I should be under the car, not in the car. A moment later, the G-Wagon stopped at a red light. A Bentley pulled up alongside them. Isabel was still looking out the window, but as she was about to turn away, the Bentley's rear window slid down, revealing a severe, imposing face. The man's eyes were cold, fixed on the back of the G-Wagon, as if he could see right through the tinted privacy glass. Everett Yates, Isabel breathed. Even just being looked at like that, knowing he couldn't see her, sent a chill through her. The temperature in the car seemed to drop several degrees. Ethan heard her and looked over. He lowered his own window, his eyes holding a faint, taunting amusement as he met Everett Yates's gaze. Neither man spoke. Their silent battle of wills lasted until the left turn signal turned green. The Bentley slowly pulled away, its window gliding up, Everett Yates's expression unchanging. The brief encounter radiated an intense pressure. Isabel, her heart still pounding, said, Ethan, you have to be careful. Everett Yates is not an ordinary man. He's ruthless, and I've heard his connections are extensive. It's fine, Ethan said with a casual smile. Victor will play with him. He'd always heard people compare Everett Yates to Victor Vance. Now, having experienced the man's presence firsthand, he felt that while the pressure was significant, Yates was still a step below his father. Where Victor had an unstated, natural authority, Yates relied more on his innate, brutal aura. To put it bluntly, he was more brawn than brain. Ethan wondered just how exactly was Victor planning to use 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds. After parting ways with the G-Wagon at the intersection, Everett Yates's Bentley sped toward the hospital. Travis Yates was still receiving treatment for the severe burns on his face and the major trauma to his groin. In a luxurious private room, The doctor had just finished changing the dressings when Everett walked in. "Dad." Travis's entire head was wrapped in bandages, leaving only his eyes and mouth exposed. He was propped up in bed, his legs spread apart in a comical fashion. Everett ignored him and addressed the doctor. "How is he today?" "He's showing steady improvement. He should be able to go home in another 3 or 4 days. Will there be any scarring on his face?" "No, I can guarantee that." Everett's next question was low and tense. "Are you sure it won't affect his ability to have children?" "I'm sure." After the doctor left, Everett sat on the edge of the bed, looking at his son with a mixture of anger and heartache. He'd already lectured him enough over the past 2 days. There was nothing left to say. "Does it still hurt today?" he asked simply. Travis's eyes filled with self-pity. He nodded. "It hurts. Dad, we didn't call the police. That means you're planning to get revenge privately, right? When are we going to make a move? I want to castrate that bastard Ethan Vance. I want to deep fry his head in a vat of oil. Do you think this is a game? A street fight?" Everett's voice was sharp with anger. "You're almost 30 years old, and you still think everything is so simple. So we're just going to take this? Dad, that's not your style. Ethan Vance wasn't just hitting me. He was slapping you in the face." "Oof. Of course we're not just going to take it." Everett sneered. "Victor Vance and I have been fighting, openly and secretly, for years. Neither of us has ever dared to go for the kill, afraid that one wrong move would mean losing everything. But the internal strife in the Vance family has been escalating recently. It's a perfect opportunity. In fact, I was already planning to make a move against him. The fact that his son dared to provoke us like this at this exact moment just gives me a legitimate reason." Travis's eyes lit up. "Really? Dad, when are we doing it? Can we wait until I'm out of the hospital in a few days? I want to get my revenge personally. Just stay on my way and stop causing more trouble." Everett admonished. The Vance family might be fighting internally, and the 3 branches would never help each other. And Theodore Vance is basically retired, but don't forget you also offended the first branch 4 years ago. "Oof. I need to make some calls first to neutralize Harrison Vance and his father to prevent them from teaming up with Victor." Travis looked ashamed. He clenched his fists. No matter what, Ethan Vance cannot be allowed to get away with this. They talked for a while longer. Everett gave the doctor a few more instructions, then left the hospital and headed for the headquarters of Triumph Corporation. On the way, he felt a nagging unease. He called his young wife, but the call went straight to voicemail. He had been drunk from a business dinner the night before and hadn't noticed if she was home when he arrived. It was only when he woke up this morning that he realized Simone was gone. He tried calling to ask where she was, but her phone had been off. He'd asked the maids, who told him that Simone had left the previous evening and hadn't returned. Everett was an extremely controlling man. He never allowed Simone to stay out overnight. Now, not only had she not come home, but her phone was still off. It filled him with a foreboding, green-tinged feeling of dread. It was no wonder, really. Simone was a woman who was seductive to her very core. Any man who married her would be on constant high alert. But Everett was genuinely in love with her. He had been since before she first married into the Vance family. When his call still wouldn't go through, his patience wore out. He immediately sent his men to find her. He spent the morning pacing his office, fraught with anxiety. Around noon, his men finally had news. "Mr. Yates, we found her. A reporter just broke a story. Your wife is with Victor Vance. I'm sending you the link." Everett froze. It was a full 5 or 6 seconds before he hung up the phone. He frantically clicked the link his bodyguard had sent. It was an article with a headline, "Flirtatious Mogul and Ageless Ex-Wife Rekindle Old Flames." The accompanying photo showed Victor Vance with his arm around Simone, standing at the entrance of a hotel, looking as if they had just left. Though they were both trying to be discreet, wearing hats and masks, one was the man he hated most in the world, and the other was the woman he loved most. How could he not recognize them? Everett nearly choked on his own rage. He knew, deep down, that Simone had only ever loved Victor Vance. But 10 years ago, Victor and Arthur Thorne had destroyed her family. A blood feud of that magnitude. How could she possibly forgive him? He couldn't understand it. He truly couldn't. When a woman's heart was ruling her head, could she really disregard everything else? "Bitch," Everett roared, his eyes suddenly filling with murderous intent. "I will skin you two alive." His office door was open, and his roars echoed down the hallway. Employees exchanged nervous glances but seemed unsurprised. They were used to their chairman's explosive temper. Besides, Everett and Simone's marriage was a secret. Simone was a recluse who had never set foot in Triumph Corporation. No one besides his bodyguards knew he was remarried, so they had no idea what he was so furious about assuming it was just another business partner who had angered him. About 5 minutes later, Everett gradually calmed down. After some consideration, he sent a text message to a contact saved as Woo, Tail Victor Vance. Report his every move to me in advance. At 9 o'clock that night, Everett arrived at a restaurant called the Red Tower. The place was an architectural marvel, built in an antique style, nestled in a quiet, remote area southwest of Port Sterling. Situated by a mountain and water, its exterior resembled a grand, 9-story red pagoda. It was a landmark in the city, having stood for over 30 years, and was immensely famous. Though the name was simple, the restaurant was anything but. In its early days, it was known for serving the rarest of delicacies from land, sea, and air, dishes that were highly illegal. The clientele was exclusively the rich and powerful. Although regulations were stricter now, the restaurant remained a treasured spot for the upper echelon. Without a membership card, you couldn't even get through the front door, and getting a membership card wasn't something money could buy. You needed recommendation from at least 2 existing members. With such strange and strict rules, it was clear the Red Tower was more than just a restaurant. Rumor had it that it was built by a high-ranking official who had retired to Port Sterling from a capital. Though he no longer held a formal position, his connections, intelligence network, and wealth were not to be underestimated. The secrets within were self-evident, though this theory had never been confirmed. But that wasn't surprising. Who would dare to verify it? To this day, the owner of the Red Tower remained a complete mystery. After parking, the driver retrieved 2 large wooden gift boxes from the trunk. Everett took them and walked into the restaurant. The driver, bored but dutiful, knew his boss would be a while, but he stayed in the car, just in case. He pulled out his phone, ready to play some games, when his father suddenly called. "Hey, Dad," the driver answered. The next second, the smile on his face froze. As soon as Everett Yates entered the restaurant, a security guard stopped him and requested his membership card. Even though he knew Yates had one, protocol was protocol. Yates handed over the card. While he waited for verification, he glanced nonchalantly toward the parking lot and saw Victor Vance's Maybach. A faint, insidious smile touched his lips. Once verified, Yates entered the grand hall. A beautiful woman in a high-end cheongsam led him to an elevator, up to the 3rd floor, and to his reserved private room. Inside, 3 middle-aged men were sipping tea and chatting. When Yates entered, the youngest of them quickly stood to greet him. After a brief exchange, he waved the hostess away and poured a cup of tea for Yates himself. The other 2 men, who both exuded an air of official authority, sat ramrod straight and gave Yates a slight nod. Yates bowed his head respectfully. "Mr. Cole, Mr. Tanner, I've kept you waiting." The Red Tower had its own rules. Everyone, regardless of status, was addressed as Mr. or President, and you could discuss any business you liked within its walls, but once you left, you could never associate the restaurant with your dealings. Not even a mention was allowed. Furthermore, there were no security cameras anywhere in the building. Mr. Cole, a portly man, pointed to the chair opposite him with a faint smile. "Mr. Yates, why are you always so formal? Please sit." The elegant Mr. Tanner chimed in. "Yes, sit down. There's no need for such ceremony between us. It feels distant." Both men were around 50, dressed in simple, unbranded clothes. Their expressions and words were casual, yet they emanated an intangible aura of power. It was the kind of presence honed by a lifetime of experience, a presence that couldn't be concealed. It was clear these were no ordinary men. Victor Vance himself owed much of his success to their guidance and support. "The first meeting after the new year, and I'm already being scolded by you too," Yates joked, placing the gift boxes on the coffee table. As he sat, the younger man, Julian, brought him his tea. "To have young Mr. King himself pour my tea, I am truly honored." Yates quipped. "You're too kind, Mr. Yates," Julian replied, his movements precise and impeccable. After some pleasantries, Yates took a sip of tea and casually mentioned, "Ah, Mr. Cole, I recall you're quite the expert on antique firearms. As it happens, I acquired a couple of pieces from a friend the other day. Would you care to take a look?" Mr. Cole smiled faintly. "Firearms have their specializations. If it's not my field, I'm as good as blind." Yates, his face wreathed in smiles, began to open one of the wooden boxes. "Let's just have a look, shall we?" Mr. Cole nodded slightly, his expression unreadable. Beside him, Mr. Tanner crossed his legs, holding his teacup with an air of mild interest. Yates carefully lifted out an ornate, antique flintlock pistol and passed it to Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole examined it closely. "Did your friend tell you the origin of this piece?" Yates paused as if thinking. He said it was French. A Vicomte model, very rare. Vicomte, Mr. Cole frowned, seemingly unable to make a judgment. Ah, pieces like this are difficult to authenticate. It's hard to tell. Yates refilled their teacups, a smile in his eyes. How about this, he said, taking back the pistol. I'll handle it, and you can look from a distance. That way, if it goes off, you can't be blamed. Huh, Mr. Cole's tone was probing. A thing like this doesn't go off so easily, does it? Yates continued the jest. In your hands, certainly not. But if you were to put it down, and a klutz like me were to handle it, well, it might be quite dangerous, haha. Mr. Tanner interjected smoothly. Mr. Yates, you're being too modest. You have a deft touch yourself. I doubt you'd have an accident. Oh, Mr. Tanner, you flatter me. To be honest, I have a pair. Yates opened the other gift box and presented an identical pistol to Mr. Tanner. I was quite fond of them when I first got them, so I placed them up high, afraid to touch them. But isn't it strange? For the past 2 nights, I could swear I hear them whispering to me. One of them even misfired and nearly injured my son. And my wife, as if bewitched, has become infatuated with them, more so than with me. So, I'm asking you two today, are they valuable? If you think they're just trouble, I'll have them decommission myself. Melt them down to scrap. Mr. Cole and Mr. Tanner exchanged a subtle, almost imperceptible glance, each waiting for the other to speak first. Yates held his teacup, his thumbs stroking the rim. After a moment, Mr. Tanner smiled and asked, Mr. Cole, have you determined if these pistols are real or fake? Mr. Cole mused. The authenticity is hard to discern, but the story sounds rather ominous. Mr. Yates, if you're truly vexed by them, whether you decommission them or not is up to you. I, for one, cherish fine craftsmanship. At worst, I simply won't look. Mr. Tanner added. Then I shall also avert my eyes. A relieved smile spread across Yates's face. Excellent, excellent. When I melt them down, you two just pretend you didn't see anything. Ha ha ha. He then leaned in conspiratorially. I stored a case of fine wine here last month. Care for a taste? In a haze of unspoken words, an agreement had been reached. But Yates's objective was only half achieved. The 3 men drank and chatted amiably, with Julian dutifully refilling their glasses. About half an hour later, Yates felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. He discreetly checked it. It was a text from Wu. He's leaving. Mr. Cole, Mr. Tanner, Yates said, rising with a smile. I need to return a call to my son. Please, continue without me. I'll be right back. Of course, of course. Come back soon. Yates smiled and nodded, turning to leave. As he stepped out of the private room, by a stroke of perfect timing, Victor Vance was passing by in the hallway. As the saying goes, enemies are bound to meet. Victor was already 7/10 drunk, leaning on his bodyguard, Wu, for support. When he saw Yates, he stopped short, his words slurred with drunken mockery. Well, what a coincidence. Wu, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Take a look for me. Has Mr. Yates dyed his hair? Why is it so green? Everett Yates instantly clenched his jaw, his eyes turning to ice. Vance, watch your mouth. Victor looked utterly disdainful. He was about to retort when he happened to see Mr. Cole and Mr. Tanner sitting inside the private room. For a moment, Victor seemed unable to process it. His 2 biggest backers, dining with his mortal enemy? Yates, feigning a sudden realization, quickly closed the door. In truth, this was all part of his meticulously crafted plan. That afternoon, he'd had his mole, Wu, report Victor's movements. By 7 o'clock, Wu had provided a crucial piece of intel. Victor was having dinner at the Red Tower and was already on his way. Upon learning this, Yates had contacted Cole and Tanner, confirmed that they were not dining with Victor, and set his plan in motion. He invited them to the Red Tower as well, partly to pay his respects and ensure they wouldn't interfere in his conflict with Victor, and partly to let Victor see them together with his own eyes. The pressure was a secondary benefit. The primary goal was to sow discord. For Cole and Tanner, it didn't matter who was under their protective umbrella, as long as the tributes kept flowing. And more importantly, as long as it was safe. But Victor had recently been under federal investigation. His security was now in question. The 2 backers had likely been considering a change for some time. Otherwise, they wouldn't have agreed so easily. The time, the place, the people, Everett Yates seemed to have it all. In this war without smoke or fire, his chances of winning were high. After a moment of stunned silence, Victor forced a smile, pretending he hadn't seen anything. He said to Yates, Mr. Yates, I just got back last night. I seem to have heard my son beat up your son. Ah, that little bastard, always causing trouble for me. Let me apologize to you here and now. Yates snorted, his smile not reaching his eyes. No need. Victor fumbled for his cigarettes, sticking one between his lips. All right, I suppose you're right. No need. They say dragons beget dragons, and phoenixes beget phoenixes. A turtle can only have a little bastard turtle. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Yates? Yates's lips tightened, a furious effort to control his rage. Victor continued to poke at his raw nerves. Hey, Mr. Yates, I heard you got married on the quiet. Why didn't you let me know? I wonder, is your esteemed wife someone I might be familiar with? Yates's fists clenched, his eyes suddenly filled with a murderous light. Vance, he said, his voice a low growl. If you're drunk, you should go home. Don't stay out too late. The roads at night can be treacherous. Are you threatening me? Victor sneered. No. From a look on your face, you really want to kill me. TSK. With a sudden, shocking movement, Victor yanked the pistol from his bodyguard Wu's holster. In an instant, everyone present froze, a cold sweat breaking out on their skin. Yates, however, wasn't afraid. He was just baffled. This kind of impulsive action was not Victor's style. Was he so drunk, so thrown by the sight of him with Cole and Tanner, that he had lost control? Mr. Vance, this is the Red Tower. You can't pull a gun here. Put it away. One of Victor's own associates pleaded. Victor, appearing truly unhinged, stared at Yates for a moment, then flipped the gun around. In a move that defied all logic, he shoved the pistol into Yates's hand. Then he leaned in, pressing his own forehead against the muzzle. Go on, he taunted. Here's your chance. Kill me. Yates's hand tightened on the grip. Given that the Red Tower had no cameras, he could pull the trigger. But the reason there were no cameras was because the rules were absolute. To fire a gun, here was to sign your own death warrant. What? Don't have the guts. Victor's eyes were full of scorn. He snatched the gun back, but instead of returning it to Wu, he kept it himself. I gave you a chance, and you couldn't take it. You can't blame me for that, haha. With that, Victor and his entourage swaggered away. Yates stood outside the private room, watching until Victor had disappeared into the elevator. He composed himself and returned to the room. Cole and Tanner asked nothing, but from the moment they saw Victor, they knew this was Yates's handiwork. Mr. Yates, Mr. Cole said, sipping his tea, I can't help but feel you're trying to pull a fast one. Yates glanced at the two ornate pistols on the table and adopted a posture of humble deference. I'm a businessman. I believe in mutually beneficial cooperation. My sincerity is as clear as day for the gods to see. Outside the restaurant, a drunk Victor Vance saw off the two friends he had dined with. Then, leaning on Wu, he staggered toward his Maybach. Chairman, give me the gun. You just disengaged the safety. It could go off by accident, Wu said. Victor smiled faintly and didn't hand it over. He sighed. Wu, how many years have you been with me? Wu was puzzled by the sudden question. 6 years, I think. Yes, just a couple of months shy of 6 years. And how have I, Victor Vance, treated you? A dreadful premonition pricked at Wu. He swallowed hard. You've treated me very well, Chairman. Victor's smile widened. This Everett Yates, he said, seemingly out of nowhere. He's a real piece of work. Getting mixed up with my two backers. But actually, I already knew. Yates spent over $80 million on those two last year alone. Wu was even more confused. Why is he telling me this? Victor continued. I know Everett Yates too well. If he knew I was at the Red Tower tonight, he would definitely have followed me here to sow his discord. But that's not important. What's important is that he stays at the Red Tower all night. Wu's confusion deepened. He had no idea what Victor was trying to say. Wu, I really have to thank you, Victor said. If it weren't for you, that bastard Yates would never have known I was coming here tonight. By now, they had reached the Maybach. Wu stiffened. Before he could react, the car door flew open. In a flash, two bodyguards had him pinned to the ground. Looking into his terrified eyes, Victor sighed. Wu, I'm not like Everett Yates. He's cautious and ruthless. The moment he finds a mole, they're gone. I'm the opposite. I knew you were a mole in your second month with me. I kept you around because I knew you'd be useful at a critical moment. So be it. You keep my secrets, and I'll give your family a sum of money. Wu was dragged into another car. Victor stared at the Bentley in the distance for a moment, smiled, and got into the Maybach, which then drove away. About an hour later, a self-satisfied Everett Yates strode out of the restaurant, heading for his own Bentley. Before getting in, he casually touched the hood and noticed it was warm. He asked his driver, Did you just take the car out? The driver's eyes darted away. He stammered, I want to drop off my girlfriend. Yates clapped him on the back of the neck and laughed. What's there to be shy about? Afraid I'll dock your pay? Hith. Let's go. Home. I'm going to sleep well tonight. He had made his arrangements, with Victor's backers and with the Vance First Branch. All the pieces were in place. All that was left was the final push. I wonder if Victor Vance will be able to sleep tonight? Ha ha ha. Tomorrow, the war officially begins. Yates's mind was already racing, planning how to swallow Victor's corporation, how to seize his resources, how to level the entire Vance dynasty. But this grand ambition was destined to remain a fantasy, and his sleep tonight was destined to be anything but peaceful. At 2 a.m, a team of detectives descended on the Yates residence. They flashed arrest and search warrants before cuffing a half-drunk Everett Yates. The detective leading the charge was none other than Eva Vance, the sharp-eyed deputy squad leader of the Major Crimes Unit. "Everett Yates," she stated, her voice cutting through the haze of alcohol. "Our investigation has preliminarily linked you to a fatal shooting that occurred last night. You'll need to come with us." Everett, utterly bewildered, was forced to his knees by 2 officers. He craned his neck up, his face a mask of confusion. "You've got to be mistaken. What shooting?" Eva gestured to her team. "Search the place." She then fixed her gaze on Everett, her tone unyielding. "Mr. Yates, you're a smart man. The fact that I'm here with warrants for both your arrest and a search should tell you we have sufficient evidence. Make it easy on yourself. Tell me, did you kill Simone?" "Simone." His eyes widened, pupils shrinking to pinpoints. "She's dead." He looked genuinely stunned, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Eva let out a cold snort. "Where were you between 10 and 11 o'clock last night?" Everett hesitated. He couldn't mention the Red Tower. The police would investigate, and according to the club's strict rules, having his membership revoked would be the least of his worries. The club's owner, whose influence was the stuff of legends, might just have him revoked from life itself. "I'm asking you a question. Lost your tone." Eva pressed, her patience wearing thin. "Everett, I'm giving you a chance to come clean. You'd be wise to take it." Everett's mind raced. How had Simone died? And how had it been pinned on him? Victor Vance. It had to be that old fox. "Detective," Everett said, a mocking glint in his eyes. "Surely you've seen the news today? My wife, Simone, was shacking up with her old flame. We were married in name only. I couldn't care less what she did. Our marriage was a secret anyway, so it's no skin off my back. As for why she's dead..." He paused, knowing full well that this iron-willed detective was from the Vance family's 3rd branch. "You should ask your father." Eva's expression was cool. "No need. Victor Vance was the one who reported it, and I've already checked his alibi. He's clean." Everett's brow furrowed. Though the details were a mystery, the foul stench of a conspiracy was unmistakable. Just then, an officer emerged from the study, holding a pistol in a clear evidence bag. "Captain, I found a handgun. 9mm. It's a match for the shell casings we found at the scene. This could be the murder weapon." Everett's world tilted. His corporation skirted the law, but he was meticulous about never keeping illegal items like firearms in his home, precisely to avoid a situation like this. Where in the hell did that gun come from? Suddenly, he recognized it. He wasn't a gun expert and couldn't name the Italian-made Beretta PX-4 Storm, but its distinctive, high-design look was unforgettable. It was the same gun Victor Vance had shoved into his hands at the Red Tower. How did it get into his house? In that moment, the man who, just hours before, had been dreaming of frying Ethan Vance and roasting Victor Vance, woke up to a nightmare. He'd been framed. Eva waved a decisive hand. "Take him away." Back at the precinct, Eva selected her most trusted officer. "Take this to forensics," she instructed, handing over the bagged weapon. "And don't leave its side. I want you to watch them until the report is in my hands." She couldn't risk the evidence being swapped. It had happened before in cases involving men with Everett's connections. She would personally handle the interrogation. In the stark, windowless room, Eva laid out the evidence. "This is Victor Vance's statement. At 12:05 a.m., he arrived at the villa where he was to meet your wife, only to find her shot to death. He called it in immediately. The M.E.'s preliminary report puts the time of death between 10 and 11 p.m. We pulled surveillance footage from near the scene. At 10:20 p.m., your car was spotted in the area." She slid another file across the table. "This is your driver's confession. We picked him up an hour ago. He stated that you had him pick you up at 9 last night. He drove you to the crime scene, where you got out, armed and furious. You returned 10 minutes later." Eva leaned forward. "Just confess, Everett. The ballistics report on that handgun will be back soon. Don't hold on to any illusions." A bitter laugh escaped Everett's lips. He didn't need a report. He knew the bullet that killed Simone came from that gun, and he knew his fingerprints were all over it. He'd thought Victor's rage at the Red Tower was genuine, but it had all been a calculating performance by that old snake. The biggest shock was his driver's betrayal. After all the money, all the favors, he had been preparing for a war with a worthy adversary. Instead, Victor had checkmated him with nothing more than a driver and a woman. With a motive, a cheating wife, so clearly established, the trap was perfect. From a certain perspective, Victor Vance fought dirty. What infuriated Everett most was that his alibi was the Red Tower, the one place he could never mention to the police. Even if he did, who would corroborate his story? The club had no cameras. Mr. Cole and Mr. Tanner? Not a chance. Involving them would be a death sentence, one the precinct itself couldn't protect him from. It was a dead end. There was no way out. In truth, Eva also found the case unsettling. It was too easy, as if someone had neatly arranged all the evidence for them to find. She knew Everett Yates's reputation. He was a slippery operator who dodged countless charges because he was never sloppy. For him to leave such a trail of breadcrumbs in a murder case felt entirely out of character. One last time, she asked, "Where were you between 10 and 11 last night?" Everett's face was a mask of grim defeat. He slowly closed his eyes and said only, "I want my lawyer." He knew it was over. Jail time was a certainty. Even setting aside the murder charge, the illegal firearm possession alone was enough to put him away for years. The grand blueprint for his ambitions had been torn to shreds before he'd even laid the foundation. Soon after, the report from forensics came back. The evidence was ironclad. With the interrogation complete, Eva returned to her office and sank into her chair, rubbing her temples. For a moment, she pushed the Yates case aside and pulled a notebook from her drawer, flipping through its densely filled pages. It detailed Port Sterling's two most recent major criminal cases, the gang war at MJ's Saloon and the drug deal gone wrong at the abandoned quarry. Among the notes was a sentence she'd underlined, "Man with Russian tattoo on arm, Donnie Sullivan." Next to it, an arrow pointed to a single name, Ethan Vance. She had been investigating him for some time. At 6 in the morning, in the quiet enclave of Emerald Lake Estates, Ethan Vance, who never slept in, ambled downstairs. "Benny," he called out habitually, "rise and shine." Lily, who was in the kitchen contemplating breakfast, poked her head out with a smile. "Morning, Mr. Ethan." "Morning, Lily," Ethan replied warmly. He lit 3 sticks of incense before the imposing panther statue, then turned to brew his morning tea. Benny emerged from his bedroom, sleep-rumpled and groggy, and collapsed onto the sofa like a great, soft mountain. "Boss, you yell that every single morning." "I think you're giving me prostate problems," he grumbled. "Why don't you go bother Finn?" "Too scared." "Oh, right, he's not here." "What about Jax? You gotta spread the misery around, you know?" Ethan chuckled, setting his freshly brewed tea on the coffee table and sitting beside Benny. "Feeling a little unbalanced, are we?" "Go ahead, you wake him up. He went to bed early last night, too." A spark of mischief lit up Benny's eyes. "Yeah, that damn hacker was talking trash about me to Lily the other day." "On it, boss. I'm gonna go wake him up." "Go on, but don't take it too far." With a devilish, "Ha-ha," Benny bounded up the stairs. A moment later, Jax's voice drifted down. "Hey, this is my room. I don't like people in my room." "What are you doing, you big lug?" "Hey, get off my bed," Benny's voice boomed. "Ever heard of a mountain crashing down on you?" Jax's voice followed, strangled. "Ah, fuck." Ethan shook with silent laughter. Just then his phone rang. It was Isabel. It was Saturday, so she wasn't working. He wondered what was so urgent. "Hey, Izzy, what are you doing up so early?" "I'm going hiking with Zoe," Isabel said, then added she says getting outdoors is good for my condition." "That's great," Ethan smiled. "Need a chaperone?" "No, you're busy." Isabel politely declined, then changed the subject. "Oh, right. I was calling to tell you, Everett Yates was arrested." "He was?" Ethan couldn't hide his surprise. "I just saw it on the news and thought you should know. You don't have to worry about him coming after you anymore." What she really wanted to ask was whether Victor had set him up, but she swallowed the words. Ethan bantered back playfully for a few moments before hanging up. He immediately went online to see for himself. Everett Yates had been arrested at 2 a.m., and by 4 a.m., gossip blogs were already churning out stories about him murdering his wife. It was clearly Victor's handiwork, designed to blow the story up so big that none of Everett's powerful friends would dare intervene. After reading a few articles, Ethan had pieced together the likely sequence of events. He finally understood what Victor meant by using 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds. But a chill ran down his spine when he realized Victor must have conceived the entire frame-up the moment he saw Simone. The strategic depth of that move was terrifying to contemplate. Ultimately, Everett had been ignorant of all of Simone's back-channel scheming. But with or without Simone as a catalyst, the war between him and Victor was inevitable. The boardroom was a battlefield. There was no right or wrong, only the eternal law of winners and losers. Meanwhile, after hanging up, Isabel went to hurry Zoe, who was still fussing in the bathroom. They had planned to leave at 5 to see the sunrise, and Zoe had even stayed over for that purpose, but they'd woken up at 5:40. Finally ready, they bustled out the door at 6:20. A minute after their elevator descended, Finn stepped out of Ethan's villa and pressed the call button. Ding! In the parking garage, Zoe continued their conversation. So, has that Korean oppa left yet? I don't know, Isabel replied. I hope so. Otherwise, I'm not sure I dare come over anymore. What a nightmare. Isabel couldn't help but smile. I think he's the one who should be afraid of you. Laughing and talking, they approached Isabel's Maserati. Suddenly, the doors of two adjacent Audi Q7s flew open. 5 or 6 men in black suits, all with the hardened look of professional bodyguards, swarmed out and surrounded them. Isabel gasped, instinctively tightening her grip on Zoe's hand. Zoe was terrified by the sudden ambush, but she reflexively moved to shield Isabel. What? What do you want? She stammered. Just as the words left her mouth, Travis Yates got out of the car. The bandages were off his face, and Isabel recognized him immediately. Isabel Thorne, you bitch, he snarled. This is all your fault. My dad was framed by Victor Vance, because of you. At 3 a.m., after meeting with his lawyer, Everett had instructed him to get Travis out of the country immediately. The lawyer had tried, but Travis couldn't swallow his rage. He believed his father's arrest was a direct result of him provoking Ethan. There was no turning back the clock, but before he fled, he was going to make Ethan's life hell. Isabel knew Travis meant trouble. A cold dread washed over her. Inexplicably, she glanced at her Maserati. If only that big lug Benny were here right now, trying to steal her tires. Take them both. Travis spat. The bodyguards moved in. Zoe, smaller than Isabel, fought like a cornered animal to protect her friend, her arms flailing like windmills. Don't you touch her. Get away, she screamed. Izzy, run. Run. Don't let them touch you. Smack. A burly bodyguard swung a heavy arm, sending Zoe sprawling to the ground. Isabel shoved desperately against the two men in front of her. Triggered by the assault, her body began to tremble violently as flashes of that night 10 years ago flooded her mind. Her back went rigid, her mind growing hazy and distant. Through the fog, she thought she heard Zoe calling her name. She looked down and saw her friend, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth, still yelling, Run, run. A bodyguard seized Isabel's arm. The touch was like an electric shock, and she flinched violently, her other hand reaching instinctively toward Zoe. Even if she could escape, she would never abandon her best friend. Zoe saw the vacant, terrified look in Isabel's eyes and knew her PTSD had been triggered. Panic surged through her. Though she was petrified and powerless, and had been dragged into this because of her friend, she scrambled back to her feet. She grabbed the hand gripping Isabel's arm and bit down hard. Arg! The bodyguard yelled, yanking his hand back and raising his fist to strike Zoe. Zoe squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the blow, her body still shielding Isabel. 3 seconds passed. The punch never landed. Confused, she heard a heavy thump. Zoe fearfully opened her eyes. Standing before her was a strikingly handsome man, his back to her. The bodyguard who had been about to hit her was on the ground, foaming at the mouth. Uppa! Finn glanced over his shoulder at the two women. Go home, he said, his voice low, before turning to face the remaining bodyguards. With Isabel and Zoe present, he kept his knife sheathed, but his fists and feet were weapons enough. His first punch was a blur of motion, knocking a towering bodyguard out cold. He followed with a graceful spinning kick that sent a leaner man flying 10 feet through the air. Forgetting the sting in her cheek, Zoe's eyes went wide with adoration. She was completely mesmerized. Go, Appa. Beat them up. You're the best. Finn's expression didn't change. This girl is a little nuts, he thought. Go home. Now. Oh, okay. You be careful, Appa. Zoe wiped the blood from her lip, then turned to Isabel, who was slowly coming back to herself, but still trembling. She squeezed her hand, her voice full of concern. Izzy, let's go home. I think he's got this. Isabel nodded shakily, and they scurried back to the elevator. Once they were clear, the killer was finally unleashed. In a flurry of precise, brutal movements, he left the remaining bodyguards groaning on the concrete, unable to get up. Travis Yates hadn't expected this sudden intervention. He scrambled back to his car, fumbling with the ignition, desperate to escape, but was too late. With a short running start, Finn vaulted onto the hood of the Audi Q7, flipped over the roof to the driver's side, and shattered the window with a single, powerful punch. He grabbed Travis by the collar, yanked him from the car, and threw him to the ground. A series of heavy, methodical blows followed, knocking him unconscious. To prevent any further trouble, Finn took Travis's leather belt and used it to bind his hands and feet. Only then did he pull out his phone and call Ethan. When Ethan heard what had happened, he changed his clothes and left immediately. Lily didn't know where he was going, but she could feel a cold fury radiating from him. As she was cleaning the coffee table, she picked up Ethan's white porcelain teacup and noticed several fresh cracks spiderwebbing across its surface. She remembered he had been holding it when he took the call. About 40 minutes later, a silver GTR roared into the underground garage of Isabel's building. Ethan got out, his eyes locking onto the pig-faced, beaten form of Travis Yates. He walked to the back of his car, retrieved the large sledgehammer that had already tasted blood, and began to drag it across the concrete, his steps deliberate and heavy. The garage was dimly lit, and, it being a weekend, eerily silent. The screech of the hammer dragging on the ground was a piercing shriek, kicking up sparks in the gloom. Ethan's eyes were glacial, a murderous aura leaking from him like a poison. Travis, now conscious, began to tremble violently. Ethan Vance, what are you doing? I'm telling you, my father has connections all over Port Sterling. Don't think you can get away with this just because he's been arrested. You touch me and you'll see. Ethan reached him, said nothing, and swung the sledgehammer. Crack! The sound of the impact, the sickening crunch of bone, and Travis's pig-like squeal echoed through the garage, tripping the motion-activated lights and bathing the scene in a harsh fluorescent glare. Ethan Vance, you fucking touch me again, and I'll... The hammer fell again, this time on his other knee. Aorg! The soul-shattering pain nearly made Travis pass out. Ethan, please, I'm begging you, don't hit me again. Ethan's grip on the hammer tightened, his knuckles white. Still silent, he raised it again, preparing to bring it down on Travis's chest. Just then, a pair of brilliant headlights swept over them. Ethan turned. A black SUV was speeding toward them, coming to a halt nearby. A Rolls-Royce Cullinan. Ethan's brow furrowed. He knew whose car it was, Harrison Vance. The eldest son of the Vance dynasty's eldest son stepped out. He glanced at the whimpering mess on the floor, then looked at Ethan, his smile polished and unervingly official. Ethan, I have a small favor to ask. Could you give Travis Yates to me? As he spoke, a younger man, about 26 or 27, got out of the passenger seat. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'9", with a sharp buzz cut and a lean frame. Dressed in a blue casual suit, he had an unassuming, dependable look about him. He stood silently by Harrison's side. Ethan shot a look at the buzz-cut man, then glared at his cousin. Harrison, how did you know Travis was here? Have you been spying on me? Harrison's smile didn't falter. Don't misunderstand. I was tracking Travis's whereabouts, and the trail led me here. Ethan, this man I have a bit of history from 4 years ago. I'm sure you've heard about it. Let me owe you a favor. Hand him over. Travis's eyes darted between the two cousins, his terror metastasizing into something deeper and more hopeless. Beaten and broken, with two powerful men now vying for the right to kill him. The feeling was indescribable. Ethan pressed his tongue against his molars. And if I say no, he said, his voice dangerously low. The buzz-cut man took a step forward. At the exact same instant, Finn moved to stand in front of Ethan, his eyes locked with his counterparts. A palpable, murderous energy crackled in the 2 yards between them. A fight seemed imminent. Chase, what are you doing? That's my brother. Harrison snapped at the man, then turned back to Ethan, his tone softening. Ethan, don't mind him. I know Travis provoked you recently, and that he came here today to cause trouble for your wife. You obviously don't want him to get off easy. Let me handle this. I promise you, I will make him regret the day he was born. Our goals here are aligned. Let me do the work. Ethan was silent. Harrison continued. I already spoke to our uncle on the way here. Ethan, do me this favor. I'll pay you back. After a long moment of consideration, Ethan finally relented. Fine. Your grudge runs deeper. Take him. Thank you, Harrison said, his demeanor never once losing its veneer of refined elegance. Half an hour later, Travis Yates was brought to a meatpacking plant. The sight of the industrial grinders, slicers, and mincers made his blood run cold. All he could pray for now was a quick death. But with both legs shattered, even the mercy of dashing his head against a wall was an impossible dream. Harrison had the largest meat grinder turned on. He looked at Travis. Do you know what I lost 4 years ago, Travis, when you went on your drunken rampage? Travis just trembled, unable to respond. My grandfather was considering giving me a real position of power, grooming me to take the helm. He was about to make me CEO of Vance Holdings. And then, because of your little tantrum, My career was set back for years. Now Ethan is back, and my path has narrowed even more. So tell me, Travis, how should you die to make up for all that? Consumed by despair, Travis suddenly broke into a wild laugh. Ha ha. Harrison Vance, you're nothing but a coward. Ha ha ha. A coward who knelt before me. It was the last defiant act of a dying man. Harrison remained unbothered. Do you have any pets? He asked conversationally. I have a shark, but its teeth aren't what they used to be. I worry it won't be able to chew through your leg bones. So don't be afraid. I'm only going to grind your lower half. You won't die. It prefers its food alive. It can handle your torso. He looked at the buzzcut man. Chase, set the machine to its slowest speed. After Harrison took Travis Yates away, Ethan composed himself and went upstairs to knock on Isabel's door. The left side of Zoe's face was swollen like a ripe melon. Hearing the knock, she tiptoed to the door and peered through the peephole. Seeing it was Ethan and her Korean oppa, she let out a breath of relief and opened the door. Mr. Vance. Oppa, are you okay? Ethan gave her a small, reassuring smile as he stepped inside. Finn remained standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable, ignoring Zoe completely. Isabel, having regained her composure, was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through work emails. She offered Ethan a faint, tight-lipped smile as he entered. Izzy, Ethan said, foregoing the usual questions of, are you okay? He sat across from her, his gaze gentle. I'm sorry. I didn't protect you. Isabel shook her head lightly. How is this your fault? She glanced toward the door. Ethan, that Korean friend of yours. You sent him to protect me, didn't you? Ethan didn't deny it. Yes. After Travis found you at the hot pot place, I figured he could find you here too. So I had my brother stay with me, just in case. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to add to your stress. Thank you, Isabel said sincerely. After a moment's hesitation, she reached out her hand. Ethan's face broke into a warm smile. He gently took her fingertips. Their coldness seeped into his palm, a chill that went straight to his heart. Izzy, why don't you let me be your hand warmer? He asked, his eyes full of concern. Isabel, feeling a bit awkward, gently pulled her hand away. It's fine, she said, looking down. Zoe watched them, sensing a deeper connection than when Isabel had been sick before. A pang of worry shot through her. She couldn't let her best friend be captured by this playboy. From a therapeutic standpoint, she supported it. But from a personal one, she couldn't stand by and watch her best friend walk into a pit of fire. In the current situation, however, she didn't know what to say, or rather, she didn't dare. She'd have to wait until Ethan left to sound the alarm. Ethan seemed to notice her strange look and turned to her. Dr. Russell, thank you, he said, his tone genuine. Your face. Is it okay? Zoe blinked, then forced a laugh. Oh, it's fine, it's fine. I don't know how to thank you. Ethan mused, tapping his lip. How about this? I'll introduce you to a client. Same fee as mine, $20,000 a session. What do you think? A tiny cash register appeared in Zoe's mind, its cha-ching sound echoing in her ears. Her eyes lit up. Well, I don't know if that's. Is it any trouble? Seeing her greedy expression, Isabel couldn't help but smile. No trouble at all, Ethan grinned. The patient is right at the door. He called out, Finn. Finn stepped silently into the room, his face a blank mask. Zoe mumbled under her breath. Finn? As in he's finished. Isabel. Ethan. Finn, crazy woman. Hith. Zoe laughed awkwardly, trying to recover. I was just joking. You know, like from that old comedy special? Hith. Ethan shook his head and spoke to Finn. The therapist I told you about, this is her. From now on, you'll be receiving treatment from her. Finn. Dr. Russell, how about this? Ethan proposed. My place is empty. Why don't you take him over there now and do an initial consultation? Great idea, Zoe said enthusiastically. Appa, shall we? Go. Finn looked at Ethan, his eyes filled with resignation. After a few seconds, he turned and left. He knew his boss wanted to be alone with his wife, so he'd been saddled with this human sparkler of a woman. How noble. Of course, Isabel also saw through Ethan's ploy, but said nothing. After the two had left, she stood up to get Ethan a cup of coffee. They sat facing each other in a strangely charged atmosphere. Izzy, can I ask you something? In the future, could you not call me by my full name? It sounds so distant. Isabel considered it. What should I call you then? Just Ethan is fine. Or how about shameless jerk? You seemed to like that one at first. A smile touched the corners of Isabel's eyes. I'm starting to think you're not so much of a jerk after all. Then it's settled. From now on, call me Ethan. Okay. Isabel nodded, lifting her coffee cup and tracing its rim with her finger. After a moment of silence, she asked, that Travis Yates. What did you do with him? Ethan didn't hide it. Harrison Vance took him. Oh, Isabel said nothing more. Though she couldn't imagine Travis's fate, she was certain he wouldn't be seen again. Izzy, Ethan said suddenly. Do you know why I used to like Chloe Miller so much? Isabel blinked, staying silent. For a man, liking a woman always starts with attraction, Ethan said. In high school, I thought she was beautiful. Later, I discovered she had a good personality too. Heh, I grew up in a twisted environment, so my personality has some flaws. I've always craved love. So, once I decide on someone, I give them my whole heart. He continued, in life, every encounter is fated, and each meeting means one less in the future. So I believe if you like someone, you should go for it. Failure isn't scary. Regret is. As Isabel was trying to decipher his meaning, Ethan's focus shifted. Izzy, it's the same with you. The sudden confession left Isabel at a loss for words. Ethan, I can't. We can only be friends. My condition. If the ship was leaving in 1 minute, I'd still stand on the shore and use that minute to hold your hand as tightly as I could. Ethan said, his gaze sincere. What I mean is, I don't want to give up on this moment because of an uncertain future. And you can't keep retreating from every new beginning, can you? Isabel bit her lip, her brow furrowed. Ethan, I don't know how to love. And you're too much a playboy. I don't like that. It's fake. An act for the Vance family. Isabel's mind was in turmoil. The mention of his reputation brought back the conversation she'd overheard between the two influencers in the bathroom. Flustered and nervous, she meant to say we can't work, but her tongue slipped. You can't perform. Ethan, what makes you say that? Isabel wanted to die. She didn't even know what she was saying anymore. Ethan thought for a moment and put the pieces together. It must have been because he hadn't touched Sky Blue when she'd tried to seduce him. That's why Isabel thought he had a problem. Izzy, I told you, that's all an act for my family. That's why I never touched those women. As for the issue you mentioned, there's an old saying, a river that's full doesn't need more rain. You get the meaning? Isabel's cheeks burned. How had the conversation veered into this territory? And this damn man was explaining it to her with a completely straight face. Ethan, can we please not talk about this? I really can't be in a relationship right now. Ethan nodded. No rush. I'll be with you. Help you get better. Today, I just wanted to tell you, seriously, that my feelings for you are real. I've never thought of this as a game. Don't feel pressured by it. We could just keep on as we've been, okay? Isabel's hand tightened on her coffee cup. She gave a faint nod. Looking into Ethan's earnest eyes, a strange, indefinable feeling began to bloom in her heart. Meanwhile, Finn was on the verge of being driven insane by Zoe. How many people are in your family? How old are you? What's your sign? Would your parents be okay with you marrying an American girl? What's your type? Finn, having reached his limit, answered the last question. Normal women. Zoe, is this jerk saying I'm not normal? Hey, let me explain again. I really didn't mean to do it last time. Don't be so petty. Okay, let's begin. Zoe cut herself off, shifting into professional mode. First, your pants. Ahem, no, not that. First, tell me about your symptoms. Poor Finn, unable to show any expression, was rubbing the cross in his hand so hard it was in danger of catching fire. Nearing noon, Ethan received a call from his father. After a brief exchange, he said goodbye to Isabel and left. Victor's Maybach was parked at the entrance of the complex. As soon as Ethan got in, he asked, "Where are you taking me?" Victor said with a smile, "Ever heard of a place called the Red Tower?" Ethan nodded. "I've heard of it. The top spot in Port Sterling. People call it the Ninth Heaven, That's right. It is very high up," Victor said meaningfully. "I was in my 30s before I was qualified to even step through its doors." Your 30s? Ethan mused. You were already a prominent entrepreneur in Port Sterling by then. The owner of the Red Tower must be someone incredible. Who is it? Victor chuckled. I honestly don't know, but you can think of it as power itself. Ethan fell silent. Some things didn't need to be spelled out. Victor continued. Ever since humanity gained wisdom, it was fated that power would be the ultimate currency. Look at Port Sterling. It doesn't matter how brilliant a businessman you are. When you encounter power, you have to learn to bow your head. Otherwise, some low-level inspector with a grudge can bring your whole world crashing down. I'm not interested in any of that, Ethan said flatly. To understand the world is wisdom. To navigate human relationships is an art. If you want to stand at the top, you have to understand the meaning of those words. Ethan was suspicious. Victor, why are you telling me all this? The more you talk, the more confused I get. You'll understand in the future. If you want to be the successor to the Vance dynasty, you have to learn to play the game of influence. Ethan was exasperated. I told you from the beginning, I'm not interested in the family fortune. You can keep those lessons for yourself. Victor smiled and changed the subject. All right, just think of today as a chance to see what the Red Tower is really like. A little reconnaissance. Fine. By the way, have you put out the word about Jean Marshall? It's out, Victor said, shooting a sidelong glance at the son who was using him as bait. I sent out last night. Now we wait. Half an hour later, father and son arrived at the Red Tower. After their membership was verified, a stunning woman in a form-fitting cheongsam approached, her smile radiant. Mr. Vance, you've arrived. Oh, and this must be the young Mr. Vance. So handsome. Out of politeness, Ethan gave a symbolic nod. Victor was much more at ease. It's only been a few days, and you seem to have gotten even more beautiful. The woman feigned a pout. Oh, Mr. Vance, you're teasing me again. After a few pleasantries, the woman led them to a private room on the 3rd floor. It was the same room where Everett Yates had sat the night before, and inside were the same 2 men, Mr. Cole and Mr. Tanner. Julian was there too, ever the sycophant, rushing to greet them, personally pouring tea, and not forgetting to offer a few words of praise for Ethan. Cole and Tanner also complimented Ethan, their words full of approval for this rising star, but it was all just empty pleasantries. They had heard more than a few rumors about the young playboy's reputation in Port Sterling. After the formalities, Victor began a coded conversation with the 2 men, discussing the aftermath of Everett Yates's fall and reinforcing the relationship between patron and client. Cole and Tanner, having nearly backed the wrong horse last night, were now quite forthcoming with Victor. But their stilted, allegorical way of speaking made Ethan's skin crawl. Every gesture, pouring tea, serving food, seemed to carry a hidden meaning. Ethan didn't understand most of it, but what he did understand, he despised. If he'd known it would be like this, he never would have come. Why listen to 2 old blowhards drone on when he could be with his wife? Halfway through the meal, bored to tears, he made a vague excuse and slipped out of the room for some air. He had to admit, the interior of the Red Tower was magnificent. Antique calligraphy and paintings were everywhere, and the classical decor was elegant and grand without feeling pretentious. He thought about exploring the upper floors, but both the elevator and the staircase were guarded by imposing bodyguards. With no way up, he headed down. Wandering aimlessly, Ethan found himself on a balcony on the southeast corner of the 1st floor. An ink wash painting on an easel caught his eye. It depicted a bamboo forest at dusk, the wind rustling, leaves fluttering. It was remarkably lifelike. As Ethan was lost in the painting, a woman's voice came from behind him. Do you understand it? Ethan quickly turned to see a woman with a graceful figure, clad in a cheongsam. Her hair was styled in glamorous waves, and her body had even more waves. She had the distinct aura of a 1940s film noir siren, or perhaps more accurately, a modern-day heiress. Did you paint this? Ethan asked. The woman didn't answer, instead letting her eyes drift over him from head to toe. She leaned against the railing, arms crossed, and smiled. I'm just a waitress. Do I look like I have that kind of skill? Now it's your turn to answer me. Do you understand it? Ethan recalled that the staff he'd passed on his way down were all dressed in various styles of cheongsam, each one beautiful and poised. He saw no reason to doubt her claim. If he'd known that her simple-looking traditional dress was worth over $100,000, he might have been more skeptical. He turned back to the ink wash painting. Normally, he wouldn't bother engaging with some random waitress, but he was bored. I know a little, he replied. Oh, the woman tilted her chin up slightly. Tell me about it, then. You were staring for quite a while. What do you think? Ethan gave her a roguish grin. You want the truth? Obviously. Or are you just pretending to know what you're talking about? Ethan shot her a look, then focused on the artwork again. In painting, they say intention precedes the brush. But this piece feels like the brush moved, and the intention followed. The strokes are delicate, but they lack spirit, lack power. The technical skill is there, but it's just copying a form. Overall, this painting feels like a beautiful woman with a vacant look in her eyes. Tell me, how good can that really be? The woman bit her lower lip, her expression hardening. So it's worthless? You can't see anything else in it. Ethan smiled faintly. It's an old artistic trope, joy in orchids, sorrow in willows. What kind of deeply troubled person paints a bamboo forest? And to show the bleakness of the wind, the leaves are scattered everywhere. I imagine the artist was in a state of great turmoil. The woman's red lips parted slightly. She looked at Ethan with a flicker of surprise, her eyelids trembling. Then she turned and strode away. Ethan figured she was busy and thought nothing of it. But just as he was about to leave, she returned, holding a brush and ink. A smile played on her lips. You seem to know a lot. Why don't you add a few strokes? Enlighten me. Ethan found the situation bizarre. He tried again, probing. You painted this, didn't you? The woman hesitated for a moment, then gave a slight nod. A sense of unease settled over Ethan. It didn't add up. A waitress wouldn't have the leisure time to paint. Who are you, really? She seemed annoyed. What? A waitress isn't allowed to have hobbies? Come on, big guy, stop being so wishy-washy. Show me what you've got. Ethan didn't respond, studying her thoughtfully. She was around his age, with looks, poise, and a figure that could rival any celebrity. There was no way she was an ordinary waitress. He had been careless, judging her solely by her uniform. You were talking a big game a minute ago. What's wrong? I'll talk. Ethan considered his options. In a place like this, you couldn't underestimate anyone. Since he had been the one to offer the critique, it wouldn't be right to refuse her challenge. He took the brush, thought for a moment, and with a steady hand, painted a single word below the chaotic scene. Stillness. The woman stared at the word. It was rendered in a strong, clean, architectural script, a testament to deep skill. She couldn't believe this roguish-looking young master could produce such fine lettering. In this modern, fast-paced era, it was rare to find anyone with the patience to master such an art. The strokes are powerful, the spirit greater than the form. This is remarkable work. She mused aloud. For such a desolate and chaotic painting, you add stillness? The artistic contrast is unique. She couldn't help but praise him. Is this word a gift for me? Ethan joked. It's in your painting. It's not like I can take it with me. The woman's smile deepened. She stared at Ethan for a long moment, then said, with a tone that was both sincere and casual, "Thank you." Ethan nodded with a small smile and handed the brush back. Just then his phone rang. It was Victor, saying they were ready to leave. He answered the call and walked toward the first-floor reception desk. A few moments later, Victor also came downstairs, holding 2 letters of recommendation. He handed them to a sultry-looking manager at the desk. "Son, I got you a membership card. From now on, you can come and go from the Red Tower as you please," Victor said with a proud chuckle. Ethan said nothing. He had no intention of frequenting a place like this, but a membership card was better to have than not. You never know when it might be useful. Just then, the woman from the balcony strode confidently behind the reception desk. The staff all bowed their heads respectfully. She was clearly a person of authority here. "Ethan Vance, my name is Sienna Sterling. Thank you for the gift today," the woman said with a bewitching smile, tossing a red card toward him. "Here, consider this membership card a return gift." "Heh. I'll remember you, Ethan Vance. Come by the Red Tower when you have time, and you can teach me calligraphy." Ethan caught the red card without looking at it. His eyes were fixed on Sienna. "How do you know my name?" Sienna gave him a cryptic smile. "You're the playboy who has a new bride every night. Is there anyone in Port Sterling who doesn't know your name?" Heh. Ethan was speechless. He could sense this woman was trouble. It was best to keep his distance. He held up the red card as a gesture of thanks and turned to leave. Victor walked beside him, a look of disbelief on his face. He snatched the red card from his son's hand, then looked at his own black one. "This red card is the highest-tier membership at the Red Tower," he muttered. "Even I only have a black one." "Son, that Sienna Sterling is the general manager here. Her background is unfathomable. I think she might be interested in you. You should get to know her better. If you could win her over, she could be a great help to you." Ethan shot him an irritated look. "That's your area of expertise. You go ahead. Just be careful you don't end up dead at the hands of a femme fatale." Victor just smiled, not responding. As she watched the father and son leave, Sienna Sterling leaned against the front desk, her chin resting in her hand, a serene and sweet smile on her face. Just then, a well-dressed young man came down the stairs. He walked leisurely to the desk, his eyes fixed on Sienna. "Daydreaming about your new crush?" Sienna's face immediately fell. "Get lost." The man scoffed. "Please, I saw you 2 on the balcony, flirting. Even if I slept with him, it's none of your business. Get out of my sight. You're annoying me." The man's expression turned awkward and displeased. "Sienna, you really don't have to talk to me like that." Sienna shot him a dismissive look. "Caleb, don't you think you're being tedious? Every time I have the slightest interaction with another man, you get this accusatory look on your face. Are you sick? A few days ago, that Joe kid just had a couple of drinks with me, and you put him in the hospital that same night. Do you think that makes me look good? Or did you think I'd be touched? Tell me, who are you to me?" The man, Caleb Shaw, pressed his lips into a thin line. "If I didn't like you, I wouldn't debase myself like this." Sienna looked weary. "We're not kids anymore. Can you stop being so love-struck? Daring to talk about liking me in the Red Tower. Aren't you afraid you won't walk out of here?" Caleb's gaze darkened. A flicker of apprehension crossed his face, and he fell silent. Sienna sighed. "I'm advising you to stop wasting your time on me. We're not on the same path. And another thing, stop looking for trouble. You know whose woman I am now. If you're so tough, Go pick a fight with him. Stop taking out your frustrations on insignificant little nobodies. She thought mentioning her powerful benefactor would make Caleb back down, but it had the opposite effect. It ignited his anger, and he threw caution to the wind. You're doing it for power, for money, to climb the social ladder. I don't mind, because what he can give you, I can't. Not yet. But one day I will. As for those small fries, they dare to have ideas about you. Don't they deserve to be beaten? Don't be so childish, Sienna said flatly. Even if it wasn't for all that, I still wouldn't be interested in you. After all these years, you can't feel how sincere I am. Sincerity? How much is that worth? Heh. I call you childish, and you double down? I'm not an 18-year-old girl anymore. Stop talking about sincerity. Why should I have to like you just because you like me? Is this the law of conservation of energy? You're sick. I'm telling you. Caleb, Sienna Sterling only likes what she likes. Money, power, men, they're all just things. Caleb took a deep breath. For all these years, you've used every man around you as a stepping stone, including your current patron. I'm curious, what kind of man would it take to actually win your heart? Sienna's tone was sharp. None of your damn business. In any case, it won't be someone like you. Someone like Ethan Vance? Caleb's fist clenched. The way you looked at him wasn't right. Sienna, you're not the type to fall in love at first sight. You've known him for a long time, haven't you? Sienna's arms crossed over her chest, her lips pursed, her eyes carrying a subtle warning. Caleb's expression grew colder. Tanner and Cole said Victor Vance was coming today and that they begged them to write 2 letters of recommendation to get his son a membership card. I know you like to paint when you're troubled. So, you were troubled because Ethan Vance was coming, right? And you even prepared a red card for him. Sienna remained silent, glaring at him. What happened between you two in the past? I'm baffled. It doesn't seem like he even knows you. Caleb, you are incredibly boring. Sienna said, her voice laced with anger. Boring? I told you. I won't interfere with your pursuit of money and power. But for you to be interested in a man, I'm genuinely curious. What is it about him that makes you treat him so differently? I'll go ask him myself. Caleb's face was twisted with a grim sort of determination. You dare? Why wouldn't I? Is my Shaw family afraid of his Vance family? With that, Caleb turned to leave. Sienna's voice was furious. If you touch him, I'll destroy you. Caleb didn't look back, only pausing for a second. You'd have to have the ability. Sienna Sterling, don't think you can look down on me with impunity just because I like you. Sienna let out a cold laugh. To be honest, I've never looked down on you, Caleb. But have you ever considered that your near-psychotic need for control is deeply unattractive? Caleb glanced over his shoulder, then strode out. Sienna looked exasperated. She pursed her lips in thought for a moment, then turned to the woman beside her. Have someone tail Caleb. If he tries anything stupid, tell me immediately. The woman nodded and made a quick phone call. After hanging up, she looked at Sienna with a playful glint in her eye. Sister, what's the real story between you and that young master of the Vance family? The way you looked at him was really something else. I've been with you for so long, and I've never seen you look at a man like that. Sienna raised an eyebrow. Like what? The woman tapped her lip thoughtfully, like a teenage girl looking at her crush. A clear, yet hazy kind of affection. Sienna playfully slapped the woman's hip. Get out of here, you. I'm 28 years old. A teenage girl? The woman's reply was sweet. Sister, you'll always be 18. Sienna's smile blossomed. After a few more light-hearted words, she walked back to the balcony, leaning against the railing to gaze at the word stillness on the painting, her eyes filled with memories. On the way home, Ethan stared thoughtfully at the red card in his hand. Victor had told him it was the highest-tier membership at the Red Tower, something only a handful of people in all of Port Sterling possessed. Even within the Vance dynasty, only his grandfather, Theodore, had one. For Sienna Sterling to give it to him on their first meeting was too generous. He wondered what her motive was. Victor saw his son's confusion and chuckled. Who cares what her motive is? Just play along. Go to the Red Tower more often, build a connection. Maybe she really has taken a liking to you. Women are all like that. The more devoted a man is, the more they find him pathetic. But they love a playboy. And right now, you're the picture of a charming rake, aren't you? That's the image women adore. Ethan was completely speechless. Victor, in the entire world, you must be the first father to actively encourage his own son to cheat. Victor's expression didn't change. I just think this woman has a deep background. You might be able to use her. Ethan's tone was sharp. Your 2 arranged marriages weren't also because the women could be useful? Victor, sometimes you're just like grandfather. Victor's face stiffened for a second. I will not interfere in your marriage. Ethan shot him a look. My marriage to Izzy wasn't arranged by you. A smile played on Victor's lips. But are you going to tell me you don't like her? Ethan. The next evening, while Ethan was chatting with Finn at the villa, Milo called. Boss, we found 3 of the guys Donnie Sullivan named, old crew members of Gene Marshall's. None of them know where his daughter is. Ethan grunted. The result was what he'd expected. He had only pretended he was going to kill Donnie that night to scare him, then handed him over to Milo to track down Gunner's old associates. It had been a long shot to see if they could find the daughter. His theory was that Gunner hadn't been killed because he had leverage on some powerful people, and that leverage was most likely in his daughter's hands. If something happened to Gunner, she would release it to the authorities. But now Gunner was officially listed as a missing person, and the news was public. Why hadn't she made a move? Furthermore, Victor had put out the word that he had Gunner, so why was the real mastermind behind it all still silent? Was his theory wrong? Ethan was frustrated, but he remained vigilant. He kept Finn from returning to Emerald Lake Estates to avoid dragging Isabel into any potential danger. If Donnie's no longer useful, take care of it. Make it clean, Ethan said, then paused. By the way, Milo, do you know a woman at the Red Tower named Sienna Sterling? I know of her, Milo replied. The general manager. Her background is very deep. Boss, that's one woman you can't touch. Ethan took a breath. I was just asking. Right, but if you really want to touch her, I could probably arrange to have her kidnapped for you. Ethan. Seriously, boss, Milo said. Want me to? Ethan sighed. Are you looking for promotion? Stop worrying about things you shouldn't be worrying about. Milo coughed. All right. By the way, boss, I think he's getting suspicious of me. He asked me at lunch today why I've been so hard to track down lately, what I've been up to. Ethan acknowledged. Let's limit our contact for a while. Better to be cautious. And be careful with your phone. Make sure it's not bugged. Yeah, Jax installed anti-eavesdropping software for me a while back. I haven't changed phones. Good. That's all for now. After hanging up, Ethan sat on the sofa, lost in thought. Across the hall, at Isabel's place, Zoe was freaking out. He confessed to you? Isabel gave a slight nod. Zoe had just arrived 10 minutes earlier, intending to warn her best friend to keep a safe distance from Ethan. She hadn't expected to hear this. No way. Putting aside the fact that you both have psychological issues, just look at his playboy reputation. He's not trustworthy at all. Izzy, you have to stay away from him. If you let him break down your walls, you'll end up in a world of pain. Isabel sighed. I can't even bring myself to have normal contact with a man. Are you really worried about me falling in love? She paused, then added, Zoe, Ethan isn't as much of a rake as he appears. He told me it's all an act for his family. You're already defending him? Zoe's eyes went wide. You believe everything he says? That mouth of his has probably tricked countless innocent girls. Just look at his father. He's one of the biggest sleazebags in all of Port Sterling. Like father, like son, don't you get it? Isabel pouted. I'm not defending him. Ugh, I just think he's not as bad as he seems. That's all. As for his confession, with my condition, it's impossible. Zoe opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. All right, just sit for a minute, Isabel said. I'm going to change. I have to go to a charity gala with Ethan in a bit. Oh, Zoe replied meekly. She watched Isabel go into the bedroom, hesitated for a moment, then slipped out of the apartment. She marched directly across the hall, took a few deep breaths to steel her nerves, and rang the doorbell. A moment later, the door clicked open. Zoe, already poised in a 90-degree bow, saw a pair of legs appear before her and plunged ahead. Mr. Vance, I'm begging you. Please leave Izzy alone. I know you're just looking for a good time, but Izzy can't handle that. If you make her fall in love with you, she won't be able to live without you. And when you dump her, it'll be like killing her. You. At that point, Zoe noticed something reflective in her peripheral vision. She cautiously lifted her gaze and saw a cross, and then, a bit higher, that familiar, expressionless face. Oop. Appa, didn't you say you were going back to Korea last night? Finn blinked, his breathing growing slightly heavier. I sheep. Leaning against the entryway, Ethan burst out laughing. Finn had complained to him at length last night about this crazy therapist. She had pestered him endlessly, and after the session, had tried to schedule another one. In a moment of desperation, Finn had lied and said he was flying back to Korea. Dr. Russell. Ethan chuckled. He was supposed to leave, but I need his help with some business matters, so I had him stay. He'll probably be here for a year or two. Finn. Really? Zoe's eyes lit up, all thoughts of her original mission forgotten. She stared at Finn with a goofy grin for a moment before remembering herself. Her expression turned serious again as she faced Ethan. Mr. Vance, Ethan cut her off before she could start. It's fine, I heard everything. Dr. Russell, Izzy is incredibly lucky to have a friend like you. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing, and I promise you, I will not hurt her. I absolutely will not. Zoe looked into his sincere eyes, but 100 doubts still swirled in her mind. After all, this heir's past behavior was enough to qualify him as the founding father of scumbags. I swear, okay? Dr. Russell, the most important thing for us to do right now is to help her get better. Ethan paused, glancing toward the opposite door. If leaving her would cure her, I would agree to it right now. Zoe looked down, pondering for a long moment. She lifted her head and stared into Ethan's eyes. Then tell me, what do you like about Izzy? Don't tell me you like her because she's sick. Ethan didn't hesitate. It started with her looks and ended with a lot of things, like the way she gets serious when she's working, like the warm heart she hides under that icy exterior, like the cute way she pouts when she tries to get back at me by ordering a meal she knows I can't eat, like the bashful look on her face when she's furious with me, only to realize I helped her and has to thank me with a red face. Should I go on? Zoe's mouth hung open. She happened to notice that Ethan's gaze was fixed on Isabel's apartment. She glanced back and saw Isabel standing in her doorway, a faint blush on her cheeks. She had come to warn Ethan off, and instead, she had given the playboy a chance for a second confession. Before she could say anything, Ethan gently moved past her and walked toward Isabel with a smile. Izzy, ready for the gala? MMM. Isabel bit her lip, her eyes darting away. Ethan came to a stop in front of her, and, as if it were now their routine, held out his hand. Isabel gently took it and turned to lock her door, a complex, indefinable feeling welling up inside her. Ethan's voice was a mesmerizing whisper, his tone full of genuine awe. Izzy, you're so beautiful when you blush. Isabel's face grew redder. Ethan, be serious, she chided. He gave her a roguish grin. Did you forget? We had a deal. No full names. Right, Isabel murmured. Let's go, it's getting late. As they walked to the elevator, Isabel looked up at Zoe, about to speak, but Ethan beat her to it. Dr. Russell, your treatment is very effective. Since my Korean friend isn't in a hurry to leave, you should continue treating him. As for the fee, $20,000 a session, and he'll need at least 4 sessions a month, right? We're practically friends now, so let's make a deal. How about this? I'll prepay for 3 months. I'll transfer you $500,000. That's a fair price, isn't it? Zoe's jaw dropped, so wide you could see her tonsils. This mountain of money had just fallen from the sky. A moment ago, she was convinced this playboy was a menace. Now, suddenly, he seemed like a man of immense talent and incredible generosity. Finn, in the elevator, Isabel found the situation amusing. What are you doing? She asked. Ethan grinned. My friend's psychological issues aren't too severe. I figure if he falls in love, it might just cure him. And as it happens, your best friend likes him. Every time she sees him, she practically drools. I'm just playing matchmaker. Whether it works out or not is up to them. Isabel looked worried. Your friend doesn't seem to talk much, but Zoe is a chatterbox. Do you think they'll work? You've never been in a relationship, so you wouldn't understand, Ethan said. It's called being complimentary. I think their personalities complement each other well, which is why I'm trying to set them up. Isabel raised an eyebrow. Right. You've been in a lot of relationships, so you know a lot. Ethan, speechless for a moment, he suddenly thought of something. Does Dr. Russell have a rich dating history? He asked quickly. Isabel looked at him, confused. Ethan stammered. Is she the type to get bored and cheat or something? Izzy, I don't mean anything by it. It's just that my friend, he was hurt really badly by his ex-girlfriend. I don't want him to go through that again. Isabel rolled her eyes. Zoe isn't like that. She only dated one guy in college, and he nearly manipulated her into a breakdown. Anyway, she's a total sweetheart, just a little naive. What about your friend? Is he reliable? Oh good, that's good. Ethan let out a huge sigh of relief. My friend is the definition of reliable. Don't you think? Hith. Reliably loyal until the day he dies. Isabel found him baffling. After a moment, she asked, Ethan, why are all your friends foreigners? And why do they all have special skills? The guy you placed in my company, Jax, is American and a computer genius. This Finn is Korean, and I saw with my own eyes how well he can fight. Ethan smiled. It's a long story. Let's just say they're all friends I made in America. Good friends. Like my own brothers. Isabel was silent for a while, then asked hesitantly, Ethan, you were abroad for 8 years. What were you really doing? She was genuinely curious. She'd been curious ever since she married into the Vance family. But back then, she loathed the playboy and would never have dreamed of asking. Now, however, she felt a subtle impulse to understand him, an impulse so faint she didn't even recognize it, chalking it up to a casual question. Ethan's eyes darkened for a split second. He opened his mouth, his voice soft. Izzy, when the time is right, I'll tell you everything. Isabel nodded, her mind unconsciously spinning with possibilities. Had he been abused abroad? Beneath that careless, roguish exterior, what kind of heart was he hiding? After the couple left, Zoe brazenly entered Ethan's villa. Finn, despite his million-and-one objections, couldn't refuse an order from his boss. He resigned himself to his fate, figuring Ethan was just trying to get rid of the third wheel again by pawning her off on him. This time, however, Zoe was less of a fangirl and more of a professional. Mr. Pooching, I feel it's necessary to properly reintroduce myself. My name is Dr. Zoe Russell. I'm your therapist. I'm 25, 5'4", 115 pounds, and my measurements are, In order to better manage your condition, I must insist you add me on WhatsApp. Don't get the wrong idea. It's just to facilitate follow-up on your condition. Quickly now, take out your phone. Finn sat ramrod straight, unmoving. Zoe pouted. Mr. Vance entrusted you to my care, so I must be responsible for you. As a patient, how can you not listen to your doctor? Be a good boy now. Add me. Speechless, Finn reluctantly added her. Zoe keenly sensed that this expressionless Korean oppa was completely immune to her words, but the moment Ethan's name was mentioned, he became compliant. It had been the same yesterday. She had found his weak spot, which would make her work much easier. After all, she was being paid a fortune. She couldn't just spend the session fangirling and slacking off. At first, when Zoe asked harmless, superficial questions, Finn, out of respect for Ethan, gave brief, noncommittal answers. But as her questions became deeper and more personal, he gradually fell silent. Zoe astutely sensed a darkness in his personality, a trove of secrets he couldn't speak of. But to treat him, she had to access his true inner world. After a moment of thought, she posed a simple psychological test question. If a small dog were critically injured, and even if you saved it, it would live the rest of its life in agony, would you choose to save it? Finn blinked calmly. Why not just kill it and put it out of its misery? Zoe was stunned speechless for several seconds. Most people would choose between saving it or not. But he had so calmly chosen euthanasia. That was the kind of answer a psychopath would give. I need to know your former profession. Please, answer truthfully. Finn's lips thinned. He clearly wasn't going to respond. If you don't cooperate, I can't report back to Mr. Vance. At least let me figure out your diagnosis. Hey, can you please cooperate? Finn remained silent. Zoe was at a loss. After a moment, she decided to try hypnosis and got up to make a cup of coffee. In her absence, a text came through on Finn's phone from Ethan. Cooperate with the treatment. As for your PTSD, tell her what you can. Don't make it difficult for Dr. Russell. Finn, it's time to change. I'm worried about you if you keep going on like this. Finn stared at the phone for a long time before replying with a simple okay. By the time he put away, Zoe was back. Oppa, relax. Have some coffee first. Zoe placed the cup in her right hand in front of Finn, then used her left hand to stir her own coffee, the spoon scraping lightly against the ceramic, making a faint, sharp sound. Finn blinked. He seemed accustomed to such tricks. Hypnosis won't work on me, he said flatly. Zoe felt a wave of frustration. As she was trying to think of another approach, Finn continued. I enlisted at 18. At 19, I was recruited into a Black Ops unit as a termination specialist. In layman's terms, a professional assassin within a special forces team, specializing in covert missions. For security, the initial training for the unit is building resistance to drugs and various forms of psychological attack, especially hypnosis. So, your hypnotic therapy is useless on me. I'm completely immune. The moment Zoe heard the words professional assassin, she froze petrified. If he had just been a soldier, even one who had killed in combat, she could have accepted it. But this man was a spy, and an assassin, no less. He was, for all intents and purposes, a licensed killer. How was a small-time therapist who mostly dealt with depression supposed to remain calm? Finn's expression was as unchanging as ever. He had expected her reaction. Seeing the terror and confusion in her eyes, he said calmly, Dr. Russell, you probably can't help me. So, let's end the treatment. Zoe was stunned for a long time before she came to her senses. Her heart was pounding. She didn't know where the courage came from, but she said, how do we know if we don't try? I have many other methods. Finn blinked, looking as harmless as a model student. Are you worried about the fee? Mr. Vance has plenty of money. He doesn't care about the cost, and neither do I. So, I will have him pay you. No. Zoe waved her hands frantically. Though she was terrified, she didn't want to back down. I really do want to heal you. Finn took a breath. I'm a person who's been kissed by a demon. I came from hell, and I will eventually return to hell. Stay away from me. It's for your own good. Zoe suddenly felt a wave of cold air wash over her, a chilling dread that made it hard to breathe. She didn't even dare to look Finn in the eye. After a few moments of sitting on pins and needles, she got up and scurried to the balcony, gulping in large breaths of air. She truly hadn't expected this quiet, gentle-looking man to be a killer. Had Ethan hired him as an expensive bodyguard? Finn watched her flee, then calmly lifted his coffee cup and took a sip. The truth was, ever since his PTSD diagnosis, Ethan had found several therapists for him, but none had ever been able to breach his psychological defenses. It was no surprise that Zoe was afraid of him. It was a good thing, really. It might finally get this persistent pest to leave him alone. However, a minute later, Zoe returned. She sat down properly across from him, her expression serious. I've decided. I'm going to heal you. From now on, I ask you answer. Please cooperate with me. Finn was genuinely surprised. He didn't agree, but he didn't refuse either. He just watched her quietly. First question. After you kill someone, what do you feel? Zoe asked, feigning composure. Even though she assumed he had only killed while on missions, it was still a life lived on the edge of a knife. How could she not be terrified? Finn was silent for a moment, then leaned back on the sofa, relaxing his posture. Nothing, he said calmly. It's like doing any other mundane task. I have no reverence for life. It was my job. Zoe unconsciously swallowed. Do you feel guilt? In the dead of night? Sometimes. I read the Bible. Insomnia? Of a sort. Zoe took a breath. Do you ever wake up from nightmares, unable to distinguish between the dream and reality? Finn gave a slight nod. What is your most unforgettable memory? Or rather, the nightmare you have most often? Finn's eyelid twitched. His voice was low and heavy. Mexico. Hesitantly, Zoe summoned her courage and reached out to take his hand. What happened? Finn stared into her eyes for a long moment, then pulled his hand away. You'll have nightmares. Zoe saw the deep resistance in his eyes and decided it was best to proceed slowly to avoid triggering him further. But at the same time, she had a clear direction: post-traumatic stress disorder, a common psychological ailment among veterans. On the other side of town, around 7:30, Ethan and Isabel arrived at the venue for the charity gala. The event was scheduled to start at 8:30, but a crowd of Port Sterling's elite had already gathered. The parking lot was a sea of luxury cars, and the valets were scrambling to keep up. Ethan merely glanced at the chaos before casually pulling his GTR over to the curb and parking it on the street. Isabel turned to him. Could you try to follow the rules for once? The valets are directing traffic. You're supposed to get in line. Get in line. Ethan scoffed. That's what drivers are for. I didn't bring Bruno tonight. You're impossible. If I weren't, how could I keep up my reputation as a scoundrel? Ethan raised an eyebrow, unbuckled his seatbelt, and got out. He walked around the car and opened the door for Isabel, extending a hand. She took it naturally, only letting go after she was out of the car. The paparazzi swarming the entrance had a keen sense for drama. They immediately raised their cameras, flashes popping as they captured the couple. The handsome heir and the stunningly beautiful CEO, they were a picture of perfection, a pair that could make anyone envious. Ethan paid the cameras no mind, instead leaning closer to Isabel in a deliberately affectionate pose. He lowered his head, his gaze fixed on her with a look of pure adoration. Isabel's cheeks flushed. He's probably just putting on a show for his grandfather again, she thought, and so she didn't resist. As they reached the grand entrance, however, Ethan suddenly changed course. He took 2 quick steps toward a lone photographer, startling the man. The story of the Vance family's illegitimate son assaulting a reporter was still fresh in everyone's mind. Was he about to make headlines again by leveraging his notorious temper? As the photographer braced himself, Ethan asked, Hey, can that thing of yours print out photos? The man stared blankly for 2 seconds before nodding vigorously. Yes, it can. Isabel watched, confused, wondering what on earth her damn husband was up to now. Worried he was about to cause a scene, she called out, Ethan, let's go inside. It's getting late. Hang on, this will only take a second. Ethan shot her a smile before turning back to the photographer. Print out all the pictures you just took of me. The photographer was baffled, but didn't dare refuse. He quickly printed the photos and handed the stack to the young heir. Ethan looked through them, a satisfied expression on his face. He unzipped his leather satchel, pulled out a thick wad of cash, and tossed it to the man. Thanks. The photographer stared at the windfall, then pinched his own thigh just to make sure he wasn't dreaming. It hurt. Returning to Isabel's side, Ethan cheerfully selected 2 photos and handed them to her. Here, we've been married for a while now, And we don't even have a single picture together. These are for you. Isabel rolled her eyes. You're ridiculous. She took the photos anyway. In them, Ethan's gaze was so tender it seemed to spill out of the frame. Do you like it? Ethan asked, his voice seductive, a smile playing on his lips. Isabel slipped the photos into her coat pocket, her tone a little defensive. As long as your grandfather likes it, that's all that matters. They walked into the hall side by side. I used to do it all for him, Ethan said, his voice dropping. But this time I did it for us. Izzy, the man you've seen so far isn't the real me. But from now on, I'm going to show you who I really am. Isabel stopped walking and looked up at him. Ethan, I don't know why you like me, but I have to tell you again, it can't work. My illness. It will only hold you back. Ethan's brow twitched. He hummed a few bars of a simple, melodic tune and then asked with a smile, know what song that is? Confused, Isabel shook her head. It's an old indie song. It's called I Don't Mind. It's pretty good. Isabel felt a wave of resignation. It seemed that no matter what she said on the subject, it was useless. After a moment of silence, she handed her purse to Ethan and shrugged off her heavy winter coat, revealing a stunning black evening gown. The elegant cut, combined with her graceful figure, flawless skin, and breathtaking beauty, was an absolute vision. Ethan's eyes were instinctively drawn to the subtle hint of cleavage, his expression one of pure, unfiltered adoration. Feeling his gaze, Isabel's face burned. Have you seen enough? She snapped. Startled, Ethan reluctantly tore his eyes away, a roguish grin spreading across his face. How could I ever see enough of this? You. Annoyed, Isabel kicked him lightly in the ankle. Be serious. You're shameless. Ethan bent over, rubbing his ankle with a pained look. Izzy, are you trying to murder your husband? That actually hurt. You deserved it. His smile only widened. He could feel it, truly feel it. Her attitude toward him was softening. Izzy, why are you even wearing a formal gown? It's freezing out, he said. We'll just bid on a couple of things and leave. We're not starlets. No need to put ourselves on display. She shot him a glare. The organizers invited me to be one of the hosts. Besides, you can't attend a gala like this without a proper gown. People would say it's disrespectful. Oh, Ethan mused. This respect seems to be awfully light on fabric, though. Who designed this thing for you? I'm going to find them and have them shot. For at least half an hour. Isabel took a deep breath. This is what evening gowns look like. You, just stop staring. She kicked him again. All right, Ethan winced. Look, for the record, I'm not some prude. It's just a man's thing. When it's your own wife, you want to wrap her up in a burlap sack. But if it's someone else's wife, well, you hope she's wearing nothing at all. Ethan. Okay, I'll stop. Just as they were bickering, Ron Wallace happened to walk into the hall. Spotting Ethan, he boomed, Nephew, you made it. Ethan turned to him, ignoring the distinguished people flanking the director, and grinned lazily. You old bastard, you're here too? Ron Wallace winced. Thanks for making me look good, kid. Isabel smiled and offered a polite greeting. Director Wallace, it's been a while. Ah, yes, it has. Ron chuckled, then gestured to a man in his 50s standing beside him, an air of expensive taste and self-importance about him. Isabel, you must know Director Monroe, don't you? He's one of tonight's most honored guests. Come and say hello. Of course I do. Director Monroe is one of my idols, Isabel said with practiced grace, turning to the man. Director Monroe, it's such an honor to meet you here. The director, Leland Monroe, carried himself with an air of immense pride, as if he were surveying the world from a mountaintop. He gave off the kind of insufferable, holier-than-thou vibe that made you want to knock him down a peg. In truth, his arrogance wasn't entirely unearned. 20 years ago, he had directed a small art house film that not only swept awards domestically, but had also broken through to Hollywood, gaining international acclaim, a feat few American directors had managed since. I've long heard that the president of Elysian Media is Port Sterling's greatest beauty. Seeing you today, I can confirm the rumors are true, Monroe said. As he looked at Isabel, a greasy, unpleasant glint appeared in his arrogant eyes. He extended a hand. Just as Isabel was steeling herself to endure a perfunctory handshake, Ethan stepped in front of her. Director Monroe, right? A pleasure, Ethan said, grabbing Monroe's hand with a roguish grin. I've heard so much about you. Monroe's brow furrowed. He showed no courtesy to the younger man, pulling his hand back dismissively. I don't believe I know you. He was lying, of course. The recent scandal where this young rake had publicly dismantled Aiden Jing's career was the talk of the town. How could he not have heard of him? Ethan had only intended to shield his wife, but now he'd been publicly snubbed. Ron Wallace felt a chill run down his spine. Others might not know what this kid was capable of, but he certainly did. He quickly tried to smooth things over. Director Monroe, my nephew here. Ethan cut him off. It's fine if you don't know me. I know you. One of the country's top directors, Leland. Leland, what's his name? Anyway, your name is legendary. Ron Wallace tried again. Nephew? Ethan shot him a look and continued. Director Monroe, I've been a huge fan of your work. That movie from 20 years ago. What was it called again? Anyway, I've been watching it for 20 years. It's fantastic. The artistry of the insult was impeccable. He was pointing out that Monroe was a one-hit wonder, and he couldn't even name the hit. Monroe's expression darkened instantly. He was famously thin-skinned and vindictive, and being so thoroughly dismissed was more than he could bear. Listen here, kid, he snarled. Don't think you're special just because your family has a little money. Ethan didn't give him a chance to finish. Oh, I am special, he said with a shrug. Without your father, you'd be nothing. I was born well. Picking your parents is a skill. You want me to teach you? Seeing the situation about to explode, Isabel pinched Ethan hard in the small of his back, shooting him a frantic look. Ron Wallace also jumped in, physically guiding the fuming Monroe toward his table. Ethan, you can't cause a scene tonight, Isabel warned him quietly. We came here to clean up your image. If you stir up more trouble, it'll be a total waste. Ethan just shrugged. Whatever you say. Still uneasy, she added. I mean it. No trouble. I'm heading backstage. Okay. After watching her go, Ethan was led to his own seat by an usher. As the guest of honor, Leland Monroe was naturally seated at the most prominent table in the front row. As he sat, he glanced his left and saw Ethan Vance's name card on the adjacent table. It made sense, he supposed. This was Port Sterling, after all. Why wouldn't the Vance family's public face be given equal standing with the director? Muttering damn it under his breath, Monroe turned to his son, who had accompanied him to the event. In a grave, formal tone, he said, Wayne, you may be seated. Only after receiving his father's permission did the young man dare to sit. This little ritual was witnessed by Ethan, who had just walked over. He looked at Ron Wallace, seated behind Monroe, and couldn't help but chuckle. Ron, is this how high society behaves? My, how impressive. Ron Wallace nearly ground his prominent teeth to dust. Nephew, he hissed, keep your voice down. Ethan stifled a laugh, then straightened up and said with mock solemnity, Director Wallace, you may be seated. Ron Wallace stared at him. Oh, for Christ's sake, I'm not your son. Ha ha. Ethan laughed freely, then plopped down in the empty seat next to Ron. I'll sit here. The front row is for aristocrats. I can't afford it. Ron's face was turning green. Keep it down. Nephew, I'm trying to close a deal with Monroe tonight. If it goes through, it'll be good for Elysian media too. Do you have a problem with making money? Ethan made no effort to lower his voice. I get it. Ron, in the future, stop introducing my wife to these shady characters. You know what your industry is like, don't you? There's a gritty new rap song that describes you people perfectly. No matter how much you try to clean it up, it's still a dirty business. And a donkey doesn't know its own name, right, Leland? Ron Wallace wanted the earth to swallow him whole. Seated in the front row, Monroe could take no more. He spun around furiously, glaring at Ethan. You little bastard, watch your mouth. The outburst drew the attention of everyone nearby. The event photographers swarmed toward them like sharks smelling blood. Ethan leaned back in his chair, crossed his legs, and looked at Monroe with utter contempt. Go fuck yourself. The atmosphere immediately dropped to absolute zero. Monroe was apoplectic. Everyone here tonight was someone of note. To be so crudely insulted by a rich brat. How could he ever show his face in this town again? But before he could erupt, Ethan spoke again, his voice a lazy drawl. Director, my wife told me not to cause any trouble tonight. You'd be wise to take the hint. Don't forget, I just got rid of a certain public intellectual not long ago. If you make a scene tonight, I will smash your goddamn face in. What the hell do you think you are? Monroe froze. The Aidinging affair had been a massive scandal, and the man's reputation was now in ruins, forced to flee the country. A key part of that was the public questioning of his loyalty. Monroe's own family had long been criticized over their controversial citizenship issues. If this young punk decided to make an issue of it, his own reputation could be destroyed. With that thought, Monroe's bluster vanished. He put on a show of not wanting to stoop to a child's level and called an attendant over to change his seat. Ethan sneered. Director, a word of advice. Go tell your investors back home. If you're going to make movies about the American spirit and fleece people with their own patriotism, maybe be content with the box office billions. Is that not enough to feed you vampires? Charging for online, streaming on top of that. Your greed is just plain ugly. His words silenced the entertainment industry figures in the room. No one dare make a sound. Monroe's vengeful nature was legendary. Who would dare cross him? But the Port Sterling business leaders didn't care about some big-shot director. They broke into applause, the sound thundering through the hall. Monroe was utterly humiliated. He had come tonight hoping to do some charity work to improve his son's public image after the recent citizenship scandal. He never imagined it would turn into this. What was the point of changing seats now? He grabbed his son and stormed out of the hall. At the door, he shot a murderous glare back at Ethan. The young rake simply gave him the middle finger and mouthed, "Go fuck yourself." In truth, Ethan hadn't planned on starting anything. He just couldn't stand Monroe's phony, pseudo-aristocratic act. It was nauseating. And staging this little drama perfectly reinforced his new, fiercely loyal public persona. He was sure he'd be trending online again soon. Far more effective than just donating money. The only casualty was Ron Wallace, who had now been dragged into offending a powerful director. Ethan glanced at him and smirked. "Ron, next time you have a project, bring it to me directly. If you introduce my wife to any more creeps like that, I won't be so gentle." The little drama concluded. Although the gala's guest of honor had stormed out in a huff, it was of little consequence to the organizers, or rather, there was nothing they could do about it. Were they supposed to blame the young master of the Vance family? Ethan was still muttering jabs at Ron Wallace, completely oblivious to a woman in a Cheongsam seated not far away in the front row, watching him with a faint smile. He used to be so quiet and gentle. How did he become so sharp-tongued? Sienna Sterling murmured to herself, finally pulling her gaze away. As she did, her eyes fell on Caleb Shaw nearby. Caleb's expression was dark. After staring at Ethan for a long moment, he got up and walked over to Sienna, taking the seat beside her. "What are you doing here?" Sienna asked irritably. The Shaw family never likes this kind of public exposure. Caleb ignored her question. "I don't like the way you look at him." Sienna rolled her eyes. "Caleb, is the phrase minding your own business not in your dictionary? Don't debase yourself like this. It's incredibly annoying. His wife is Port Sterling's greatest beauty," Caleb sneered. "So isn't this a case of you being obsessed with something you can't have? Isn't that pathetic?" "None of your damn business," Sienna shot back. "Get lost. You're ruining my mood." "I'm sitting right here today," Caleb said defiantly. "I'd like to see who has the guts to make me move." Sienna was speechless. Deciding he wasn't worth her energy, she turned to chat with the person on her other side. Soon, the gala officially began. Ethan knew nothing about the art pieces up for auction and had little interest. His eyes were fixed on Isabel, who was on stage, his gaze full of tender affection. There were 3 hosts in total. Compared to the other 2 professionals, the usually aloof Isabel spoke very little, merely chiming in with a few words here and there. Ultimately, the organizers had invited her to be a beautiful face, to add a touch of class to the proceedings. Sensing Ethan's unwavering stare, Isabel felt a little uncomfortable. She kept shooting him warning glances, but the young rogue seemed to be enjoying himself. Not only did he not stop, but his gaze became even more bold and unrestrained. This silent exchange was not lost on Sienna Sterling. The enchanting woman in the Cheongsam watched them, her expression unreadable, the smile on her face never wavering. The gala proceeded smoothly, and the bidding was fierce. As the evening neared its end, Ethan was thinking he should probably bid on something. Just then, a diamond necklace was presented, with a starting bid of $150,000. Looking at the dazzling piece, Ethan didn't even wait for the host to finish the description. He raised his paddle. $300,000. The words had barely left his mouth when Caleb Shaw also raised his paddle. $500,000. Ethan followed the voice and saw Caleb, noticing Sienna seated next to him. She offered a small smile and a nod, a silent greeting. Ethan, out of politeness, nodded back. Then he raised his paddle again. $600. Caleb. $800. Ethan grinning. $1 million. Caleb. $1.2. A stir went through the crowd, and the auctioneer grew excited. On stage, Isabel looked at Ethan and shook her head slightly. A $150,000 piece of jewelry being bid up to $1. $2 million? Was he insane? Did he have money to burn? But Ethan ignored her silent plea. Whatever Caleb bid, he added another $100,000, raising his paddle again and again without hesitation. When Caleb shouted out $2 million, Isabel couldn't take it anymore. Looking at the frenzied bidding from her husband, she spoke into her microphone. "Mr. Vance, please be rational." Ethan stood up with a grin. "Honey, so should I bid or not? It's up to you." "Ha ha." His words sent a wave of laughter through the hall. A few people started heckling good-naturedly. "Mr. Vance, we didn't know you were so scared of your wife. And stop rubbing your happiness in our faces." Isabel's cheeks burned. She couldn't look at Ethan and didn't know what to say, standing frozen in embarrassment. "Honey, I just think this necklace would look beautiful on you," Ethan said, his voice carrying across the room. He shot a look at Caleb and continued, "So, 2.2 million. For a matching pair." Caleb was about to raise his paddle again, but Sienna calmly placed a hand on his, her voice a low warning. "Caleb, are you trying to become a celebrity? Can your family afford that kind of light? Why are you getting into a fight with him for no reason? Is it worth it?" Caleb's brow furrowed. He finally relented, muttering snidely, "They're so in love, aren't they, Sienna?" Sienna just snorted, offering no reply. After the gala ended, Isabel went backstage. Ethan sat waiting for her. Sienna hesitated for a moment, then walked over. "Ethan Vance, fancy seeing you here." Ethan looked at her outstretched hand and gave it a light shake. "It is a coincidence. Hey, when you have some time, are you going to teach me how to write like that?" Ethan opened his mouth, swallowed the words, "I'm busy," and replaced them with, "We'll see." Sienna looked slightly embarrassed. After a pause, she teased, "They say Mr. Vance is a notorious playboy, but I never realized how much you dote on your wife." Heh. Ethan just smiled. For some reason, he felt a strange sense of familiarity in her eyes, but he couldn't place where he might have seen her before. He was sure he'd never known anyone with the surname Sterling. As he was thinking, Sienna rubbed her bare arms and murmured, "It's actually a little chilly in here tonight. I wonder what's wrong with the heating." Ethan paused for a second. "Yeah, it is a bit cold." Then he took off his suit jacket. A smile touched the corners of Sienna's eyes. But in the next second, she watched as Ethan, holding his jacket, turned and walked toward the backstage area. She followed his path and saw him meet Isabel. She watched as Ethan draped the jacket over Isabel's shoulders. Sienna couldn't help but feel ridiculous. With a soft sigh, she turned and left. "Where's my coat?" Isabel asked, confused. "You should wear your own jacket. It's cold." Ethan glanced in Sienna's direction. "I'm not cold," he smiled. "You can put your coat on over this in a minute. Look at you. Your face is already pale from the cold." Isabel didn't refuse this time. She looked up at him, a hint of annoyance in her voice. "Why did you spend so much money? That bottle of Emperor's Reserve 1990 stalled at 70,000 and no one else was bidding. I was giving you the signal. Why didn't you bid on that?" Ethan laughed. "It's for charity. I'm a Vance. I can't be stingy, can I? Besides, it's Victor's money anyway. I don't feel a thing." Isabel rolled her eyes at him. "Let's go. Time to go home." Not far away, Caleb Shaw watched the couple, a wicked smile playing on his lips. The silver GTR was parked on the street right outside the venue. When the couple walked out, they were surprised to find two luxury cars boxing it in, one in front and one behind, with barely 8 inches of clearance at either end. "Looks like someone else has the same terrible manners as you," Isabel teased. Ethan looked at the Lamborghini parked in front of his car and the Aston Martin behind it, his lips tightening. The valet lot may have been packed, but the street was wide open. There was no need to park this close. It looked like someone was intentionally blocking him in. Isabel frowned. She looked around, but saw no one coming to move either car. She took off her heavy coat and handed Ethan's jacket back to him. "Who knows how long we'll be waiting? You should put this on. It's freezing." "Worried about me?" Ethan asked, a smile in his eyes as he stared at her. "Can you be serious for 1 second?" she chided. Seeing he wasn't going to take the jacket, she draped it over his shoulders herself. Just then, Caleb Shaw strolled over, walking past Ethan and heading straight for the Lamborghini. Isabel assumed he was finally going to move, but Caleb simply opened the door, retrieved a pack of cigarettes, and then shut it again. He leaned against the hood and lit up, showing no intention of leaving. Ethan watched the elegantly dressed stranger, the same man who had been sitting next to Sienna and competing with him at the auction. What was his game? Was he sore about losing the bid and trying to be a pain in the ass? Isabel looked at Caleb and spoke in a cool, polite tone. "Excuse me, could you please move your car? You're blocking us in." Caleb shot her a disdainful glance. "Sorry," he said icily. "I've been drinking. Can't drive. My driver won't be here for another 2 hours. If you're in a hurry, why don't you try flying?" Isabel realized this stranger was looking for a fight. She turned to Ethan with a questioning look, as if to ask, "Do you know him?" Ethan shrugged, then turned his gaze on Caleb. "A good dog doesn't block the road," he said bluntly. "Moo." Caleb's eyes, filled with undisguised hostility, locked onto his. "Are you looking to die?" Ethan pressed his tongue against the inside of his cheek, his expression slowly darkening. Seeing the tension escalating, Isabel quickly intervened. "Ethan, forget it. Let's just get an Uber. Don't cause trouble." Haunted by the memory of her husband's explosive temper, she reminded him, "Remember why we came tonight. There are reporters everywhere. If you start a fight, Everything we did will be for nothing. At that moment, Sienna Sterling also emerged from the hall. Seeing Ethan and Kayla by the road, she quickened her pace. Mr. Shaw, a good dog doesn't block the road. Haven't you heard that before? Sienna said, her words sharp and, oddly, echoing Ethan's. Caleb clenched his jaw and turned away, continuing to smoke and ignoring Sienna's warning glare. Ugh, Sienna sighed. Her expression softened as she turned to Ethan. My friend has a strange temper, she said with a small laugh. When he gets stubborn, he's like a mule. Mr. Vance, you're a bigger man than him. Please don't get angry. Pointing to a Maybach luxury van that was pulling up, she offered, How about this? I'll give you and your wife a ride home, and I'll have someone deliver your car to you later. How does that sound? Her offer only infuriated Caleb more. He angrily threw his cigarette, but to the ground. Sienna, stop trying to be the hero. I said if he's got the balls, let him fly out. Sienna's brow furrowed, her tone turning cold. You are truly insufferable. Seeing the crowd of onlookers growing, many of them reporters, Isabel tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Ethan, listen to me. Let's go. We'll get a cab. Ethan stared at the trunk of his car, debating whether he should grab the sledgehammer inside. It was just a Lamborghini, nothing he couldn't smash. But seeing the crowd gathering, he thought about how he couldn't let his wife's good intentions for the evening go to waste. One minute he's playing the philanthropist, the next he's smashing an $800,000 supercar on the street. He could already imagine tomorrow's headlines. Most importantly, Isabel would be furious. Otherwise, he'd just be the scoundrel he was supposed to be and not give a damn what anyone said. After a moment's hesitation, Ethan let out a breath and squeezed Isabel's cold fingertips. Wait here a second. Isabel suddenly had a bad feeling. She instinctively tightened her grip on his hand, her eyes wide. What are you going to do? Sienna, unsure of Ethan's plan, crossed her arms and watched him with a smile. I'm going to try. Flying, Ethan said with a grin. He then looked at Sienna. Miss Sterling, I appreciate the offer, but it's better to rely on yourself. I'll handle this. Sienna smiled and nodded, not saying a word. She'd heard all about this rake's previous exploits, crashing a Range Rover, smashing a Ferrari. She had a feeling she was about to see another good show. However, she knew the young master of the Shaw family wasn't one to be trifled with. A flicker of worry crossed her mind, but she wasn't in any position to intervene. She shot a sideways glance at Isabel, especially at her impressive chest, and the captivating socialite sighed to herself, feeling outmatched. Ethan. Isabel's heart pounded as she watched him walk toward his car. Ethan visually measured the distance in front of and behind his GTR, then looked back at Isabel and smiled. It's fine. I'll be out of here in 30 seconds, tops. A wave of murmurs went through the crowd. Everyone could see what was happening. Never mind who this young man was who dared to block the Vance family Scion's car. Just looking at the distance between the three vehicles, there was no way the GTR could get out. A thin layer of sweat formed on Isabel's palms. Her mind was already playing out a scene of Ethan ramming the Lamborghini out of his way. She tried to stop him again, but Ethan just gave her a playful heart sign with his fingers before slipping into the driver's seat. Caleb lit another cigarette, sitting firmly on the hood of his car. He wanted to see how Ethan was going to fly out of this. Was he really going to ram him? Hearing the roar of the GTR's engine and seeing the sly, challenging look in Ethan's eyes, Caleb recalled the stories he'd dug up last night. Ethan beating up a reporter, smashing a Ferrari, shoving Travis Yates' head into a hot pot. A chill crept up his spine. While his own family background was certainly a match for the Vances, if this maniac decided to go berserk right here and now, he'd be the one to suffer. He slid off the hood and stepped to the side of the road. Scared, Sienna taunted. It'd be better if he hit it, Caleb sneered. Then I'd have a perfectly good reason to teach him that there are bigger fish in the sea. Their voices were low, but Isabel heard every word. She could feel it. This unidentified man had a powerful background. The reporters had already set up their equipment, cameras aimed squarely at the GTR. Ethan put the car in gear, pressing the gas and brake simultaneously. He expertly turned the steering wheel a couple of times. In the next second, the front of the car began to move. Vroom! The GTR's engine roared like a caged beast. The tires spun furiously, but the car didn't move forward. It was rotating in place, kicking up a thick cloud of smoke. Within the swirling fog, the front of the car slowly twisted. Just as it was about to touch the Lamborghini's bumper, Ethan instantly shifted, and the GTR's rear end swung out. From a bird's-eye view, the GTR was oscillating, swinging its body inch by inch into the middle of the road with impossible smoothness. The sight left the entire crowd dumbfounded. It was a stunt from a movie, a special effect. They never thought they'd see someone pull it off in real life. Sienna's eyes shone, her face alight with an excitement she couldn't hide, as if it were her own man performing the stunt, sharing in his glory. Isabel was frozen in place, utterly stunned. She knew Ethan was a good driver, but she never imagined he was this good. A moment ago, her heart was pounding with anxiety. Now, it was pounding with pure exhilaration. Her gaze shifted, taking on an unmistakable look of admiration. A joyful smile spread across her face, turning her into a starstruck fan. Caleb's face was as dark as it could possibly be. He bit down so hard on the filter of his cigarette that he couldn't draw any smoke, spitting the mangled remains onto the ground. In less than 30 seconds, the GTR had masterfully shifted sideways out of the spot. With skills like that, who would ever fear parallel parking again? Ethan stomped on the gas. The GTR shot out of the thick smoke. Then he wrenched the wheel, executing a perfect drift that whipped the car around, stopping it precisely in front of the Lamborghini. The young heir got out, walked around to the passenger side, and opened the door. He looked at Isabel with a roguish grin. "Your Highness, your steed awaits." The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause, with many exclaiming in amazement. No one had ever expected the Vance family's notorious playboy to possess such breathtaking driving skills. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Isabel, blushing, got into the car, her heart still beating far too fast. Ethan shot a sideways glance at Caleb, who was clenching his jaw. He pulled out his phone, pretending to check the time while secretly snapping a photo of Caleb, which he immediately sent to Milo. Then he got in the car. After a moment's hesitation, he gave Sienna a small wave. Sienna smiled and waved back, a strange, complex emotion swimming in her eyes. "Izzy, you seem a little excited," Ethan said, buckling his seatbelt as he looked at her. "Don't tell me you're a fan of speed and passion." Isabel didn't try to hide it. She nodded. "Yeah, Ethan, I had no idea you were so good with cars." Ethan was surprised. He'd always driven slowly around her, afraid she wouldn't like it, and had never pulled any stunts. Who would have thought that this cool, collected beauty actually loved to race? Isabel saw his surprise and explained, "My mom, she used to love cars. She was so cool. When I was little, she would always take me drifting. But when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, my dad said I needed to be more of a lady, and he didn't let my mom take me anymore. So that's how it is." Ethan understood now. He put the car in gear and smiled. "Well then, how about we take a little trip down memory lane?" Isabel gripped her seatbelt, her eyes full of anticipation. She nodded eagerly. Ethan grinned and slammed his foot on the accelerator. The GTR spun in a tight circle before launching forward with explosive speed. Watching the GTR disappear, Caleb immediately jumped into his Lamborghini. At the same time, a young man darted out from the crowd and got into the Aston Martin. Sienna felt a sense of helplessness. She shot Caleb a warning look. "Don't embarrass yourself any further," she snapped. Caleb completely ignored her, revving his engine and tearing off in the direction Ethan had gone, the Aston Martin right behind him. Sienna looked around at the swarming reporters, her lips pressed into a thin line. She turned and got in her Maybach van. A young woman in the passenger seat asked, "Ma'am, should we do something about him?" "He's guaranteed to be on the news tonight," Sienna said coldly. "Plenty of people will be managing him. Why should I waste my time?" "Humph. Back to the Red Tower. I'm tired." Meanwhile, Ethan was finally letting loose. He pressed the button on the center console that changed his license plate and sped onto the outer loop. It was nearly 10:30, and the roads were relatively clear. Isabel watched the speedometer climb past 100 miles per hour. Amid the excitement, a flicker of fear surfaced. "Ethan, maybe you should slow down a little. We're on a public road, not a closed track." Ethan smiled at his wife. The Isabel he was seeing tonight was a side of her he'd never witnessed before, a giddy young woman, completely shed of her cold, corporate shell. "I'm taking you somewhere. The road there is always empty." Isabel hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." Just as she spoke, Ethan caught sight of Caleb's 2 cars in his rearview mirror. "Izzy, hold on tight. Time for some real fun." Isabel gripped the handle with one hand and her seatbelt with the other, taking a deep breath. In the next second, Ethan yanked the steering wheel. The car executed a 180-degree drift, its nose now pointing directly at the approaching Lamborghini. Caleb was shocked, instinctively slamming on his brakes. But Ethan shifted into reverse, speeding backward while flashing Caleb the middle finger. Isabel now saw that they were being chased and cried out in alarm. "Ethan, don't be scared," he said with a wild grin. A few seconds later, he shifted again. The GTR drifted in a full circle around the speeding Aston Martin, and once it was facing forward again, it shot past the Lamborghini's left side with a deafening roar. "Maniac!" Caleb cursed, stomping on the gas to give chase. After passing through a tunnel, he saw the faint outline of the GTR exiting the highway. By the time he got off the ramp, there was no sign of it. In racing, a good car is important, but skill is everything. Besides, if you were to strip down that unassuming GTR, you'd find that its hardware was in no way inferior to the Lamborghini's. When he'd had it modified, it was built to the specs of a top-tier race car. Having easily shaken Caleb, Ethan headed straight for North Mountain. He tore up the winding mountain road, his speed at times breaking 120 miles per hour. Isabel was getting a true taste of speed and passion. At first, she tried to suppress her excitement, but after Ethan drifted through several dangerous curves, the beautiful couldn't hold back anymore and let out a series of joyful screams. It was 11:20 by the time they reached the summit. Ethan pulled the car over. He looked at Isabel, who was still flushed with excitement, and smiled. "Was that fun?" "Yes," she beamed, her breathing slightly ragged. "Come on, get out," Ethan said. "I used to come up here whenever I was stressed out. Look at the stars, watch the moon, feel the night breeze. I'd always go home and sleep like a baby. It's been a while." Isabel got out of the car and looked around at the serene surroundings. She tilted her head back and gazed at the sky. A crescent moon hung in the hazy darkness, and a vast expanse of stars glittered like countless jewels set against black velvet. Being this close to the sky always gave one a feeling of clean, pure relief.